Yep, and the YouTubers love the 6 minutes.
Yeah. So we're gonna go live on YouTube right now, everyone.
Do you want us muting when we're not involved in conversation?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. All right, everybody on YouTube, how you doing tonight? We were going to have Ghosts of the Great White North tonight with Merle and Michelle Deschamps. We were going to be talking UFO sightings in Canada, but due to the situation that's happening surrounding MUFON, we have a special presentation tonight, everyone, where we're calling this "What Now MUFON?" And I have just an incredible panel for you guys to hear tonight. Some of the most brilliant and most experienced minds in ufology have joined us on very, very short notice to take part in this because they felt it was very important that we needed to talk about this subject tonight. So what we are going to be doing is tonight we have scientist Bob McGwier with us. You're familiar with him. You're familiar with UFO historian William Pullin. Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, is always in when we do these shows because he brings a real legal side to everything, being a former Washington State judge as well as a lawyer in Washington State. James Clarkson, former Washington State member of MUFON. He was the state director there for a number of years. He's joined us. We have journalist Cheryl Costa, who I think is one of the most brilliant UFO writers in the field today, as well as we have Melinda Leslie, who is not only friends with a lot of members on MUFON, but considered herself pretty close to Jan Harzan and had absolutely no clue that this is going on. So I know we don't usually take this step. We're about having fun. We're about talking about all the woo and just enjoying the experiences that people have. But sometimes, everyone, we have to get a little serious. We have to talk about the news of the day because, we struggle in ufology, everyone, to try and bring credibility to this field. And whether it's shows like this or whether it's researchers like the panel that we have here, we are all struggling for that credibility. And when something like this happens and the mainstream public starts looking into it, it gets a little ugly. It really does get a little ugly. So, I realize normally at this time I'll give a rundown of everybody who is in the chat room. Right now, we're going to do things just a little bit differently because this panel is ready to go. We're about 3.5 minutes away from launching tonight's show. And, we'll read out everybody who's here so far because I know you guys love that and I love that too. We got Tammy Finnegan. Thank you for coming on in, beautiful Tammy. Science Bob is already in. Bees Nest Movies. Good to have you here. Crystal Light, thank you for coming on in again. Renee in New Zealand, please report and make sure how tomorrow is looking. And if we all survive here on the West Coast, we'd appreciate that since you live in the future. Eugene Braxton, my brother, how are you, my friend? I love you. Mark Salzman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Gorgeous Jules, good to have you back. April, May, June, thank you for coming on in. Andrew Fricker, the Andrew Fricker is here from London, England. Yes, we have the Commonwealth part of with us here. Millennium, good to see you here. Same as you, Middle Child. Thank you for coming on back. Lord of Land, Go 66. Devin and Brett, good to have you here. Bart L and the Third Nipple Crew, good to have you here. And we have Dirty Filth. Thank you for your fun and awesome art, buddy, every time. Jim Christie's here, everybody. Give him a round of applause. The beautiful and stunning Pleiadian Starseed. Thank you for coming on in. Gorgeous BGs all the way from Australia. Please report if we are alive tomorrow as well. We would appreciate that. Little Davey Altman, we appreciate you coming on in, my friend. You are one of the best in the field, buddy. Thank you coming in. Tony Garza from Corpus Christi, Texas. Thank you for joining our Spaced Out Radio chat room for the first time. Really appreciate seeing you. PBR, thanks for joining us. And who else do we got here? I don't want to miss anybody. Fapster, Lance, and Worsley. Gary the Spudger. Yeah, we got a packed house already. Greco, hope the food was good today at your restaurant. All right, buddy. We're going to start one of the feeds, our great panel. And we are about 1 minute and 40 seconds away from going here. Actually, less than that. About 1 minute, guys. Mr. Apnea, thank you for coming on in the chat room. Always appreciate you. Triple M, good to have you here. And we're going to have a hell of a show, everyone, tonight. Okay, it's not our usual. And everybody who is watching at the Scoreboard Bar and Grill right now, thank you for joining us. We're going to try and get some woo in here and a couple of plethoras or 2 or 3. But we're going to have some fun with you guys tonight as well. Little Marky Spender, thanks for coming on in. We'll see you tomorrow. Bring an ice cap when you come by my work, please, because I know I can use it. And yeah. I know for a lot of the Americans are like, what the hell is an ice cap? It is called heaven. It is called heaven. All right. It's from Tim Hortons. Yes. Oh, by the way, Mark, I got one right here too. Let's see here. Okay, guys, we are 10 seconds away. Bill WD-40, good to have you here, my friend. Thanks for coming on in. Let's have a great show. The super chat is open. Make sure you give us a thumbs up or thumbs down and hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. Let's have an amazing show. Music is on. Vieko, thank you for coming on in. Welcome to our chat room for the first time. We appreciate you. All right, everybody, here we go. Hi, Raylan. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome everyone listening in tonight, especially on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. On July 3rd, the head of MUFON, Jan Harzan, was arrested in Huntington Beach, California for allegedly trying to lure a 13-year-old girl into sexual acts. However, it was a covert operation by the local police force, which led to Harzan's arrest. For almost 2 weeks, from what we know, Harzan kept silent and working his duties as executive director of the world's largest UFO network. Yesterday, Harzan's arrest became public news, causing a stir in all of ufology. Last night, during this show, he was removed from his duties effective immediately by MUFON's board of directors. So tonight, and I got to be honest with you, I hate doing a show like this. I'm not comfortable doing a show like this, but we have to. We absolutely have to. We're going to discuss Jan Harzan, MUFON, and the impact this could have on the entire field of ufology. We have brought together a very special panel tonight. Some of the most brilliant minds in ufology are here. Journalist Cheryl Costa, scientist Bob McGwier, paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall, former Washington State MUFON director and former police officer James Clarkson, ufologist Melinda Leslie, and UFO historian William Pullin. They'll be with us the next couple hours. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the news on the SOR Newswire. I want to say thank you for joining us tonight, our incredible panel. And you know, one of the things that I want to state to the public, there is a lot of people out there right now, you know, call it cancel culture, call it anger, and there should be anger. There very much should be anger over a situation like this. But we have to remember, okay, that tonight we're going to try and have a very civilized conversation about this, because whether we like it or not, there are a lot of good people within MUFON, whether they work as state directors, whether they work closely with the board, whether they're on the board, whether they are just members of this organization. And we cannot allow one person's horrible, disgusting actions that he has allegedly done, all right, to dictate the entire group. So panel, I'm going to open it up to you guys and say thank you so much for coming here. James Clarkson, I want to start with you tonight, if you don't mind, because you resigned from MUFON, I'm going to say a year to 2 years ago, and you were a staunch member of, or a state director for Washington State. You know, you're somebody who knows these people in and out, from the board of directors all the way down to investigators. Tell me how you felt when you heard this news about Jan Harzan.
Well, I learned why it is that we shouldn't look at your cell phone when you're driving, and I was fortunately the passenger. I thought, well, I'll just check up on Facebook, and I looked down and I saw Jan Harzan, and I thought, that looks like a mugshot. Of course, I've seen a lot of mugshots. And then I realized it was a mugshot. And then I looked further, and it appeared to be an official bulletin from the Huntington Beach, California Police Department. And I was just sitting in my seat mumbling. I was just in a state of shock. And yet, at the same time, I've been reflecting on this ever since. And I think this is just utterly tragic. There are people who have a dark side that they keep secret from other people. This has happened before, and the biggest example I can think of, there was a congressman, I believe, named Anthony Weiner, which was an unfortunate name. But as I recall, he was caught sexting. Sending pictures of himself naked to other people very inappropriately. And he basically destroyed a promising political career and a marriage to a beautiful woman. Now, I don't know how far we can carry that analogy, but there are instances where powerful, successful people just implode. And somehow I think that's what's going on here. And, do I know if he's guilty or not? No, of course I don't. And obviously the circumstances are probably not going to be disputed, but I would expect a defense attorney to challenge whether or not the intent to commit the crime was there. I would also say, as a caution in all of this, because I was a child sex abuse detective for 2 years for an advocacy center after I left the regular 20 years of police work. I know that prosecutors are very careful before they go forward, and they are usually looking for more than one victim and more than one case. So by no means is this story necessarily over. And this may be just the beginning.
And that's the scary part, isn't it, James? Because we don't know if this was the first time, or we don't even know at this point publicly whether or not there have been any victims whatsoever from this heinous crime. And we have to look into that too, do we not?
That will happen. In other words, I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I saw somebody refer to it on a YouTube just a little while ago, but I don't know if the source is credible. They were claiming that they knew for a fact that Jan Harzan's computers had been seized. Well, there's nothing really surprising about that. Of course, in this video, they were trying to say this had very sinister implications because supposedly he had critically important UFO videos that were given to him by the Defense Department. And of course, somehow he didn't bother to copy them anywhere else. And now they're irretrievable because his computers were seized. I would point out that seizing the computer of somebody who's suspected of committing a crime like this is absolutely routine. They've got people trained to take those computers apart and look for evidence of other illicit, illegal acts with children. That's what this is all about. And they're going to be looking really, really closely to see what other connections they can make.
All right. Melinda Leslie, I want to bring you in here because for a number of years you have worked with Jan Harzan on ufology and in a number of different capacities from attending conferences together to working on projects, and I know on social media you mentioned that, for a long time you considered him a friend. How much of a shock to you is this situation?
Oh, thanks. And thanks for having me on. An absolute shock. Absolute shock. Richard Dolan said something right away and put something on his members page saying it was like being hit in the gut, and that's how I felt. I've been sick about it ever since. It caused me to lose some sleep last night. It's just really, really personally tough. This is someone, I'm caught between being very sad in one moment and being very angry in another. Now, I think many of us here on the panel knew Jan in a personal way, but I've known him for 30 years, and he was always a huge defender of me and my research. Many, many times, him and I early on in MUFON Orange County did investigations together. He, at one time on the board for MUFON Orange County, didn't have someone necessarily always that could go out and do something, but he could rely on me. Not a whole bunch of times, but definitely a handful of times I did investigations where him and I went together and interviewed people. And, so personally for me, it's just really rough. Obviously, I would have never thought in a million years that this person could be this way. But James, I'm sure you couldn't address this or just kind of did. People can be this way and you don't know this about them. They can hide a personal problem. A couple things come to mind that I want to say right away. I think James addressed this a little bit just now too, but, in legal cases, obviously, someone is innocent until proven guilty. And we can think and hear possibilities of past misconduct on his part and whatnot. And that may or may not be true, but we've got to allow the legal process, and I'm sure Michael can talk all about this, to take its course, because we also know in this field, people can be set up, and that's always a possibility as well. So I think from reading the statement by the Huntington Beach Police Department, obviously it doesn't look good. It looks like they considered him guilty of multiple incidences from the way it's worded. And then therefore they set up this sting operation to have him meet someone posing as a 13-year-old girl. And, so it admittedly doesn't look good, but a couple people, including, you're all probably, I know you're all familiar with Mark D'Antonio, and he just was saying in some recent comments on Facebook just within the last minutes before the show, again, guilty till, innocent till proven guilty, and to keep that in mind and not jump to conclusions. Mm-hmm. But here's the deal. Like I said, I know it doesn't look good. As someone who knew him, that I would not know this about him. I have his number in my phone. This is someone, when I would hear something weird going on with MUFON, rather than hearing a bunch of say-so, I'd call him directly and say, Jan, what's this I'm hearing? What's going on? And so, and over the years since I moved to Sedona, I've had less and less contact with him, but, would definitely make a point to spend time talking to him whenever we're at a conference or event, but I have known him for 30 years, and we did do investigations together, and he has defended me a bunch. So, it breaks my heart to think that he'd be guilty of this. I'm not saying he's not. He may very well be, and it's just something I didn't know about him. Yeah. But at times I'm like angry and say, being a pedophile and a sexual predator and going after young women, there's no excuse. And then I flip between that, and then feeling bad for him, realizing he's married, he has a family, he has kids. The whole family's going through this. He has a lot of friends, the people with MUFON Orange County going back for 30 years. And I think of them, and it's been so quick. I haven't had a lot of time. Granted, I've talked to some people, and as all of us, I'm sure here tonight.
Right. Melinda, I want to get our
texts are going crazy.
Right, Melinda, I want to get Cheryl Costa in here, and Cheryl, from a journalism point of view, this is not good in the public eye. The public has already convicted him, even though we legally have to remember that he is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But in the eyes of the public, they're ready to hang him. They're ready to hang everybody in MUFON, which, some people will say is fair. Others will say it is not. How important is it to get the journalism right on this subject?
It's very important. It's extremely important. I've seen stories today on Vice, Mystery Wire, and just a little while ago on Newsweek. So the story's out there, and it's only going to get bigger because the topic matter is popular, both from a crime standpoint and the fact that it's related to UFOs, which a lot of people are interested in. I have to, I think, interject. So the journalism part of this is critically important. I have chosen not to write anything on this until more facts come out. And as everyone has stated, the man is innocent till proven guilty. Now, let me add a different perspective. I'm a retired computer security specialist from a major aerospace corporation. I've done plenty of white-collar crime investigations within the corporation. And every now and then we would run across somebody who was running a business on their work computer or something on this order, or running something nefarious on their work computer.
Right.
And one of the standard things that we did was scan the machine for pornography. And I remember one particular case where it took all morning because we found 5,000 pieces of pornography on this guy's work computer. And the corporate attorney and I consulted, and he said, check it for child pornography. He said, the federal test is 3 pieces. He said, let's use a threshold of 10. I said, fine. So we checked for that kind of thing, and there was a plethora of child pornography on the machine. The man was sent home, and then he was called into HR a day or so later, and 2 FBI agents sat on either side of him at his dismissal from the company. This is someone who had over 28 years with the corporation. We lost a very talented employee. Okay. And now what was the result of that? He ended up doing a plea deal. Okay. So we don't know how these things are going to shake out. But again, the man is innocent until proven guilty. And it's like Melinda said, sometimes these things can be set up.
Absolutely. And you know what? One of the things, too, that we do have to remember is, we have to abide by the court of law. We have to. It's unfortunate because we all hate these incidents. We all get sick of them. Science Bob, I want to bring you in here on this because even though you're relatively new to the field of ufology over the last year, it still comes down to the fact that this affects everybody, whether you've been investigating as long as somebody like Melinda has or somebody who's relatively new like you.
Well, so first of all, I've been having conversations with Jan about doing something new, untried before, high tech with the MUFON database. So those conversations now end unless he's been sharing and passing along and handing it off to others or involving others. So hopefully that will go forward, and we'll just have to see because I think it's important that the MUFON database be used more than it's currently being used. I am not, however, unaccustomed to having a person who is in your life or in one way or another do this kind of thing. And people may know of my former profession where I was involved with the United States government, and there were many times I would go overseas. On one occasion, I went overseas, and the person with me took advantage of the travel overseas and went and involved themselves with a underage person sexually. This was determined. There was a massive investigation. They lost their access and job and were escorted out the door by the FBI. Now, because of the nature of what I was doing, this person was never prosecuted. It was never brought to law enforcement because it had happened overseas under strange circumstances, and so nothing could be done about it unless we shipped the person overseas and had them prosecuted there, and no one was going to do that. So it's all, whenever this kind of thing happens, and it's inside of an organization, the entire organization is impacted. And in my particular case, everyone's life that was involved in what we were doing was put in danger. So it's just one of these things where you know that it's some kind of compulsion that just can't be stopped, because they have to be aware that if caught, their life is over. So it's tragic, it's horrible. It's I'm angry for the young person who was involved, having to be involved at all. I'm angry for any others that might have been involved if all of this is true. And I'm upset for MUFON. I'm upset for ufology, because this is going to be the butt of jokes about ufologists. You just know it is.
Absolutely.
So,
yes, absolutely.
But with that, it's just going to be so hard. We're just going to have to get over. And the hope is MUFON board takes this opportunity to strike out on a new path and do things better than they've done for a while.
And we will get into that here in the next little bit. William Pullin, I want to bring you in here because credibility is a factor. You're a former member in San Antonio. I know you had your own personal issues with what was going on, but personality and opinion aside, in the UFO community, as we only got about 2 minutes here to go, this is striking a lot of people hard and a lot of people fast. And it's sickening to a lot of people's stomachs out there, especially on social media right now. It's very vocal.
Yeah, rightfully so. It's a horrible situation, regardless of whether Mr. Harzan is proven guilty or not, and the legal process will move forward to determine that. It's another black eye for the UFO community. The UFO field has struggled to gain some level of credibility in the eyes of the general public and in the eyes of the scientific community. This can't help. This is another misstep. This is another black eye for the community in general, not just MUFON. And I did my program prior to this, and one of my listeners commented that perception equals reality. In other words, one black eye paints the entire field inaccurately. I guess the analogy we could use in society is that one bad cop makes everyone think all the cops are bad, which is ridiculous, but that's perception.
Why don't I know that?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And so what happens here is if one individual of note that's known in the UFO community does something out of line, whether he's guilty or not, the perception is he is, that paints everybody in that light. And that's unfortunate. And that's what we have here. And it's another step back. It's something we don't need as a community, not just MUFON. We don't need that. We have a hard enough time weeding through fake news. We have a hard enough time weeding through misinformation, all these other issues that need to be addressed without having to address another one. That's kind of where we're at now. We'll see what the future holds. But I think MUFON has tried to conduct damage control, move forward, and I hope it is into a new direction. That would be productive for them. But I wonder how long the damage of this incident is going to drag on the community as a whole. We'll see what the future holds.
Everybody, I'm going to get you to
Cheryl
hold on.
Here. Can I interject a point?
Cheryl, save that thought here because we are going to go to break here in about 5 seconds here. We have Melinda Leslie, James Clarkson, Cheryl Costa, Michael W. Hall, Bob McGwier, and William Pullin, all here for a special edition of Spaced Out Radio tonight. What now, MUFON? That is the big question coming up after they have made big-time news with the arrest of Executive Director Jan Harzan. We'll be back with more and Michael W. Hall talking about the legal implications here on Spaced Out Radio. I apologize, Cheryl. 8 seconds, I'm sure, was not going to be enough for you.
Not a problem. I understand. Not a worry.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, now we get to discuss things. Our YouTube chat, we got 132 people in here in our chat room right now on YouTube watching live. And we want to make sure that you know, that they understand that we're going to keep talking to them tonight. I mean, the emotion factor here, guys, that a lot of people are showing. Do you think it's rage that they are having? I mean, there's a plethora of emotions going through social media right now. Twitter is horrible right now. I specifically stayed off Twitter today.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I specifically stayed off of Facebook today because it's all over the place. And it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like somebody just beat me with a baseball bat because of this.
Well, you know something? It's everybody who's a researcher. If this really gels into and he is guilty, this is going to haunt every researcher, which we all do interviews on a regular basis with somebody, and this is going to haunt us for years.
Agreed.
I don't even want to get into the probing jokes.
Yeah, that's There's something I want to just throw out there too. I want to make sure this somehow gets worked into the conversation. I've been reading accusations off and on all day that the MUFON board must have known about this. They must have known about his arrest. And I took the whole thing apart. And I don't know one way or the other. I mean, I don't know what they know or don't know. But I came up with an extremely plausible scenario which would explain how he got arrested on July 3rd and then managed to go about his duties for almost 2 weeks before the story broke. I believe I know exactly how that would be accomplished, and it's perfectly legal.
Well, why don't you save that for when we get back from the radio show, because I think that's going to be a very pertinent point on here. Like the woo factor of all of this is horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
We suffer from a plethora of idiots.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Also, a couple of years ago, we had a racist individual in MUFON, and look at the large, I'm going to use the word plethora, of people who resigned from the organization at all levels because of the hoo-ha that went on with it.
Reasons that got started.
You were kind of the catalyst behind that, weren't you, James?
Yes, I think I probably am now listed as the Great Satan, but it was very ironic, and the universe was screaming at me. I had an opportunity to be the opening speaker at the Ozark Mountain UFO Festival. And while I was there, my wife was with me, and she met this extraordinary woman who is a psychic. My wife is also a practicing intuitive palm reader, tarot reader, and a psychic, as well as being a wonderful woman and a poet. But she introduced me to this psychic who was there at the Ozark Mountain UFO event. And this woman and I sat down and talked to each other for about 10 minutes. And I said, "Is there anything you can tell me?" And she says, "The only thing I'm sure of is that somewhere in time, you and I are brother and sister." And I said, "You're right." The woman happened to be very definitely black. And this was about the time then that I come back and we start wrestling with John Ventry and all of that. Well, it was very clear to me that I had to take a stand. And to be honest, I was pretty burned out with MUFON anyway. because I was trying. There's a whole issue in MUFON that's never been addressed, and that's the have directorships versus the have not directorships. And I was one of the have not ones. I inherited an organization that was almost completely flat, with very few members and almost no resources. And it's very hard if you're a family man and working a full-time job and being a state director, you get stretched pretty thin.
Right. James, I'm going to have to cut you off right there because we're about to come back from break here in about 10 seconds. Thank you, BGs, for the super chat tonight. 137 people in here so far. Want to say thank you. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'd greatly appreciate it. And here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Music's coming on. There we go. Music's on. Welcome back to the special edition second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We're going to get right to it tonight because we want to make sure that we get as much information to you guys as possible. It is talking about MUFON all night long as we have a great panel here consisting of Science Bob McGwier, UFO historian William Pullin, B. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, James Clarkson, former MUFON state director for Washington State, journalist Melinda Leslie. Michael Hall, I want to bring you in here for a minute, if you don't mind, my friend, because you being a former judge in Washington State and a current lawyer in that same state, you have dealt with a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly law. You know, for people who may not understand how this works, what's going on now? What's happening on the legal side?
Yeah, you know, it's first of all, it's just like you said, a feeling of remorse and of total letdown in people's whole scenario, what they're thinking about in ufology at this point. So we need to kind of gather together at this point and kind of take stock of things. The legal ramifications at this point, since it's been now at least 12 days since the actual arrest. It's very interesting to see what's going to be happening out as far as the any kind of defense is put together, or if there's going to be a plea bargain and or both, throughout this thing, and whether if he's talking with an attorney, hopefully he did that right away, because it's very interesting to me that the legal process, whenever you go through something like this, I've been a defense attorney, I've been worked in the prosecutor's office myself, so I've been in both sides of the fence on this thing, and plus I've been a neutral, trier of fact as well. You just never know the details until you get into a case, and so I'm really waiting to find more information about, for instance, is there any previous activity that would be shown on potentially the computer, that he has? Is there, obviously it sounds to me he's never been charged or accused of any kind of a crime at all. So you're talking about an individual who, other than this kind of an issue, maybe has a sterling reputation behind him, and you just never know what's going on in the background there. There is some interesting things that I've found strange on this case. The fact that he was literally arrested on July 3rd. And then indeed, no one knew about this event until yesterday, July 14th, when it was finally announced. Even though Huntington Beach Police Department had, I understand, through my UFO detective, James Clarkson, telling me that there was an actual alert, kind of like a local Amber Alert, during the time, because there was a sting operation happening. It wasn't just Mr. Harzan that was arrested. There was another gentleman at least, and maybe others as well. So obviously there was something going on at the time, and people in the local community got this Amber Alert, but for some reason it wasn't made public until just yesterday. So that timing is kind of confusing to me, and I'm wondering what's going on there. And also, of course, the whole timing of the actual arrest itself. I mean, if indeed there is a pattern of activity, I'm wondering if there is any kind of pattern of activity, and wonder why the arrest took place this week.
Oh, James is going to tell us, I promise you, that Jan Harzan turned witness, and they let him walk out so that people wouldn't know he'd been gotten, so that they could go after some kind of bigger fish.
Could that be, James?
I could even see a different version of that too, but it would amount to the same thing.
Okay, I have a quick question for James or Michael here. How is he able to walk away? Would he have had to post bond or bail in order to do this?
Well, that's my theory. My theory is, and I don't know, the accusation is being thrown around, and this is a devastating accusation if it's true, and maybe somebody has evidence that I haven't seen. I don't know. But accusing the board of knowing that Jan Harzan had been arrested for this heinous crime and deliberately concealing it, I'm just not buying that, because I'm picturing a man well established in the community, zero criminal background. He gets caught in the sting operation along with another man. He's booked. He ends up going through their arraignment process. He's given bail. And I don't know how bail works in California, but I do know how it works in Washington State. I also was a regulatory. Now, when I look at this bulletin from the Huntington Beach Police Department, a significant portion of it is warning parents about the dangers that their children may face online. And it looks to me like part of the origin of this bulletin is from this Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force program, which has a very interesting website. It says 61 coordinated task forces representing 4,500 state, local, and prosecutorial agencies. So that means established procedures. They're doing this all the time. I don't necessarily believe that when they arrested Jan Harzan, they either knew or cared that he was involved in UFOs. We all care deeply about that because we're all in the UFO world. But to the police, I'm not sure that this would mean anything. So there's
just
my
another
theory.
perp. Yeah, just another perp.
Exactly.
I had an employee at a business that I used to own, got busted for downloading movies, particularly pornographic movies, this type of thing, and it met a measure, and he was given bail, but he was walking around with that electronic leash on his ankle monitor, right?
I used to do those. He wore it
for a year. He wore it for a year before they sent him to a federal pen for 5 years. So again, we don't know what the full circumstances is, and I want to make one point clear. The press release there said multiple felonies. Okay, it was what they were charged with, and if they confiscated his computer, if they find more than a half a dozen pieces of child pornography, and remember, this was a charge against going for like a 13-year-old girl, supposedly, the ball game's over. Anybody who's ever had anything more to that, from what I've observed, being a former security person, they got a federal sentence out of the deal. So I hope that's not true. And like we said earlier, this is going to paint a lot of us with the same brush, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Melinda Leslie, I want to bring you in here for a second, because one of the big controversies that's going around the internet right now regarding this is that it took the board of directors 12 days in order to find out. And there are a lot of people saying, come on, there is no way that the board of directors didn't know this. They were probably waiting for it to come out in public. Now, I have talked to two members of the board of directors personally, And I can honestly say, point blank, that these two had no clue. The one person was almost in tears when they were talking to me. They were so stunned by this. 12 days, though. I mean, in your opinion, how did this go silent for that long?
Well, Dave, I don't really know, but I think everyone just kind of addressed it. I think he, made bail and chose to keep it silent, probably had to, deal with his family and legal issues, and, notifying MUFON may have been really low on the list. Did he talk to someone privately, maybe, who agreed not to tell everyone else? Well, that will probably come out, maybe, someone will come forward. But I have not spoken directly as you did to board members, but I've spoken to people who have spoken like you have directly to board members. And what they're telling me across the board from these board members is that these people had no idea. But given what everyone just said, I think that was just explained pretty well. James, was that you or was that William? But one of you guys just explained, I think, that very well with why he wouldn't be telling them and why they may not know. I mean, we just had a major holiday and things, and we're all caught up in many other things going on in the world, in our lives. And it could just be that he had not told him yet. He was probably trying to know what his course of action was going to be, and possibly did not feel necessary to tell them yet. And then this broke as a news story, and that's why we all know.
Cheryl here, it's strange as a journalist that this arrest over that holiday weekend didn't show up in the next Good Business Day newspaper in the region on the police blotter. That's what's got me puzzled, because that stuff usually shows right up.
Okay, but
Cheryl, got pages.
Go ahead.
They've got pages.
No, I was just going to say, I think that was just an address. I think, William, was it you that brought that up? That because of it being that task force and dealing with children, that maybe it was that they put out a statement about that. Otherwise, they may not have made this public, but they were making an example of him, and that's why it was made public.
I think that's spot on.
Here's the thing, though. Okay, if you want to add to and I hate to use the word conspiracy in this because I don't think it is a conspiracy, but if you want to add to the story, 12 days is a long time for the MUFON board of directors, if they knew about it, to be able to try and figure out how they were going to deal with this. And once again, I am going to say 2 members of the board have told me that they had absolutely no clue until it came out yesterday. And I'm going to believe them because I trust these people in my private conversations that I have with them. I won't give up their names, just letting you know that they are members of the BOD. William Pullin, I bring you in here for this. I mean, for the people who are saying there's no way, it's 12 days. They had 12 days to make sure that they could clean up and get the egg on their face. But how do you prepare for something like this? I mean, it's darn near impossible.
I agree. I think it's impossible. I generally don't look at my news feed on Facebook. I don't, because it's a bunch of horrible commentary usually. But I was very interested to see what kind of comments this event precipitated. And usually people that believed the board of directors knew about this and dragged their feet were already anti-MUFON in their thought process anyway. People that were a little more fair to MUFON and objective were saying things like, well, it's illogical to think that they would know and cover it up. After their past history of these missteps, they could ill afford to drag their feet again, like they did with the John Bentry situation. It makes more sense that they didn't know, and when they did find out, they pulled the trigger and terminated him quickly to get that done, because they learned from the past the way they handled the Bentry racist comments. They kind of dragged their feet. They came out later. He was helping them with his symposium, and that whole thing was kind of a mess for him. To trying to be kind, but there's no way to prepare for it. Not at all. I'm with you, Dave. I don't know anybody personally on the board, but I think logically, usually some critical thinking. I don't know who says that, but It makes sense that the board, sorry, Bob, it makes sense that the board did not know about this. It makes more sense they did not know. It fell into their lap. They handled it as best they could, which was to terminate him, name someone new, and try to move forward. That's kind of what transpired. It's very illogical to my mind to think that they would have found out about this 2 weeks ago and let it sit and then do something now. Because if they did it opened up a Pandora's box of all these other conspiracy ideas that are already out there. I mean, they already have, MUFON does have a public relations issue. There are a lot of people that don't like MUFON at all. And everyone has a right to their own opinion. But having said that, if they did know about this in the past, that wouldn't make that situation any better. It wouldn't have. That's why I don't think they knew. They just it fell in their lap and they did the best they could with it. I mean, it's a horrible situation.
Dave, I want to jump in here and clarify some facts just to make sure people don't misunderstand what I was mentioning as well. Is that I have no reason to believe that the MUFON board of directors even knew anything about this incident until the Huntington Beach Police Department actually did their own press release in social media yesterday. Okay, right. So you got to realize that this is not the delay that I was speaking of was not to disparage at all any board member from MUFON at all. I've been a consultant to MUFON myself since 1995 and a longtime member. I think the board members had no clue what was going on because in reality, the issue that I have is he was arrested on the 3rd of July. The Huntington Beach Police Department didn't come out until the 14th to make an announcement on this. So we need to clarify that.
Okay. Bob, I want to bring you in here for a second because you are somebody who over time has been involved with numerous multi-million-dollar and multi-billion-dollar companies. And you've not only helped start them, but you have worked for them, among other things. The way the board has handled this, in your opinion, as someone who has been a part of different boards of directors, what is your thoughts on the way this has been handled so far by the MUFON BOD?
Okay, so I am going to assume, like I think most everyone else on this call, that they did not know ahead of time. And so let's just give them that. They didn't know, they were caught flat-footed, and their response indicates to me that they were in shock and really were having a hard time grappling with this. I'm not going to bring up the exact claims, but a well-known person in ufology went on Twitter and made some really ugly statements about the person that MUFON made the acting executive chairman. And it's just the kind of tone-deaf, insensitive, really just mind-numbingly dumb moves a board will make when they're in complete shock. They're desperate to have an action, to be proactive, and whenever that happens, mistakes are made. So all of that says to me that MUFON's board was caught completely flat-footed and didn't know what was going on and reacted as the best they could. And I just think that they could have said and should have said, MUFON will continue to operate. We have our current officer corps. The board will help manage the situation while we take our time and find an excellent replacement. That would have been a better choice.
Right. And I talked to one of the members last night about this, and the board member told me that this person was wishing to have the interim tag placed on the new leader, David McDonald, and we'll get into him a little bit later. However, the other members of the board were not for that. And maybe it is a panic situation, Bob. Maybe because they are making a rash decision here that it wasn't thought of in proper terms. But we do have to elaborate on that the person in charge now, David McDonald, is on an interim basis as far as we know.
That was the announcement, is it was interim. And that they named him executive chair emeritus. All of that says that this is a temporary thing. And given all the other stuff that was brought up later, some of it just sounds really tone deaf and not cool. It needs to be as interim as possible. They need to conduct a search and find a really credible candidate, one that has all the right squeaky cleanness one can get, and then go on.
Would everybody else concur with that? As we got about just over 3 minutes to go here before we go to break at the top of the hour.
Yeah, this is
talent search.
This is Melinda. I'd like to comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was okay with the statement they put out as a quick, like, this is just, they called, I do know someone that was having quite a lot of conversation yesterday with one of the board members, and that particular board member called the emergency meeting and kind of put it together, and they realized they needed to respond quickly and decisively as far as having a statement saying we've removed them completely. Gee, I wish they had acted that way back when the Ventry stuff happened, but regardless, they did do it this time. And so I think they acted in the way they had to, placing an interim director right away. You know, as far as I know, the symposium is still going on. And so I could see why they needed to say, we need to have, you know, we need to distance ourselves from this right away. And so I do applaud them for that. Now, I hope that now that they'll take a vote and consider this, I really think a positive statement, and I'll own this as just personally, this is Melinda, but I've talked with a bunch of other people, men and women in the field, you know, within the last 24 hours. And many people, so it's not just me, many people are hoping that when they do that process, that they will strongly consider putting one of their top women that they have, 3 or 4 highly placed in MUFON right now, who would all be capable. And I think it would make an extremely strong statement if they considered and put a woman in that place. Now, I believe that the board, I would like to believe that they will pick the right person based upon experience and ability to do it, as well as someone that wants the position. You know, they may have thought of women, they may go to one of them and they may turn it down. So I just hope that is considered. I think it would be a really positive statement when they do have, I mean, the bottom line on this here, and we've already talked about it, is they have a huge image problem. And I think that is true. Placing a woman there would do a lot to heal that image.
And everybody, I'm going to get you to hold on here because we are going to go to break at the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to start discussing, you know, some of the events that kind of led up to this. MUFON has been in hot water before, whether it's potentially or allegedly selling documents to people like Robert Bigelow, which many have denied, whether it is racism, and now this situation with Jan Harzan. There's a lot of topics we need to talk about before we start turning around and thinking, how does MUFON get out of this? How do they clean themselves out? Can they survive the arrest of Executive Director Jan Harzan, former director? More Spaced Out Radio in Hour 2 with our panel coming up next. This is solid radio so far, everyone. Thank you so much. I know you're not getting a lot of time to speak, but having each and every one of you here just makes this panel and this entire discussion way more professional. Thank you.
Okay.
You're doing great, Dave. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, I agree.
Very highbrow conversation at this point, which we need at this point.
Yeah, you guys chat away. I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay? Don't forget.
All right.
Don't forget, we're still live on YouTube.
Okay, Cheryl here. I just did a web search to see if any Orange County or Huntington Beach newspaper had any kind of a police blotter comment, for arrests and things like this. I couldn't find anything. The first notice of this literally was yesterday, with the Huntington Beach Police Department putting their post up. So I can see a case here that the MUFON board was blindsided.
There's when you go on Huntington Beach Police, you can download the PDF of their booking records, because everybody who gets booked, it's a public record. And you get like 38 pages with about 7 or 8 entries per page. And I would say at least half of them are felonies, and a good portion of those involve violence. So I'm thinking that I really do think that Jan Harzan's booking just sort of blended into the woodwork. And I don't think it would raise any eyebrows until it hits the UFO community. And it wouldn't, if it hadn't been for that bulletin where the task force was trying to show everybody what they've accomplished, making an example out of Harzan and that other man, we still might not know about this. The other thing I noticed when I was searching on this, there was a ton of Huntington Beach and Orange County positive press about Harzan and the work they do with MUFON and all this stuff. I counted something like 8 articles over the past year and a half. So he's a high visibility figure here, and that's got a good twist to it, and it's got bad twist to it. But that's my observation so far. Yeah, who would have ever thought that this would happen?
Yeah, that's what's so shocking. And I can, Linda, again, I can speak as someone who's been a friend of his for a long time. That it's just an absolute shock. And I know that many people in the UFO field who are friends with him for a long time and who he helped in different ways over the years. I mean, I also know people that are mad at him. I mean, I know people that have had political and different things. One thing we should talk about when we do come back eventually, and I kind of touched upon it there right before we went to the break. I thought that was interesting timing. But it is the treatment of women in MUFON. They do have a history that's not good. I won't mention the names on the air, but I'll mention them here, like things that Chase went through and things that Erica went through. Yes. And, so there's, and I know those guys are real upset. I mean, I knew Erica would take to the airways about this, but haven't yet, but plans on it. And but it is an issue, and a lot of women in it feel that way. Now that's separate from what Jan did. I mean, it's problematic as this is going to be. The thing is, it's really separate. I'm sure all of you would probably agree with that. I mean, what happened to Jan is a separate thing, but you have to go, and it doesn't make any statement about MUFON. It's Jan's own personal problem, own personal illness, if in fact it happened, but we all know it will reflect on MUFON. How MUFON handles it will reflect on MUFON. And certainly it's something that ufology has to deal with. A friend of mine was texting me during this, and I sent him today an article appeared in Newsweek. It hit mainstream Newsweek, and made fun of ufology because of it. And it's like, oh my God, here we go,
But we're all going to pay a price for this.
Absolutely.
Well, especially now with all of the UFO stuff being on the front page of the New York Times and Politico, et cetera, any opportunity to make fun of us will be taken.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's just another shot.
the timing is an issue. The timing is a huge, huge issue.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jen Harzan's not in this booking log whatsoever.
What do you mean?
Maybe he hasn't had to register yet because he hasn't been convicted.
No, this is the arrest log. It might all totally be because it was part of that special task force.
I'm looking at a copy of it right now.
So am I. You know,
one of my listeners on Twitter has it at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Has the case, the file number, and Newport Beach, communicate with minor with intent to engage in lewd act, arrange meeting to engage in lewd act with minor in public. So it is out there. So
it's on page 31 of 78.
All right. Everybody, we have about 10 seconds left before we have to come on this or come back from the show for hour 2. I'm going to cut the intro short here, introduce all of you, and we're going to get going right off the hop here, okay?
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave
Music
Scott.
is on.
Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. And on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us, especially if you're listening in on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Normally, I read a little bit more. We're going to get to the password with the Desert Clam, who sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Jongleurs is your password. Jongleurs. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. We have a panel tonight, a special panel, as we are breaking down what next MUFON. After executive director, now former executive director, Jan Harzan was arrested, and it came out yesterday that he was arrested for, let's get into it. He was arrested for communicating with a minor with intent to engage in a lewd act and arranging a meeting to engage in lewd act with minors in public. And this has been a real hit on ufology. We have Melinda Leslie, former MUFON State Director James Clarkson, journalist Cheryl Costa, paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall, scientist Bob McGwier, and UFO historian William Pullin, all here on this tonight. And I'm going to start off by saying this. Okay, Jan Harzan never once came on this show. He refused because of a number of hard questions that he had dodged over the years by just thinking, well, we're MUFON, and I don't need to answer any tough questions. Whether it was about the racism with John Ventry, whether it was about the involvement of Robert Bigelow, even though that happened before Jan took over as president, the involvement with the To the Stars Academy, that was never announced. I don't think that really went anywhere, but still, that was kind of public, that a public group like MUFON could be engaging with a private company like TTSA and Meta Materials. We all remember that. William Pullin, I bring you in here. Racism, selling potentially information of people. We have conglomerating with private companies with public information, or what is supposed to be public information. This is a real black eye that continues for this once proud group. How do we dig out of this? Is it even possible?
I have no idea how you would accomplish that. I mean, Melinda made a great comment off the air that the women issue, the lack of diversity in the group, and by extension, the UFO research community, and I agree wholeheartedly that it's a huge issue. It's separate from what Harzan may or may not have committed. But the trouble is, when you have one indiscretion, when this story broke out, it casts a spotlight on all the other issues that have not been addressed, including the diversity issue, including the racism. How can we dig out of that? I mean, obviously the issues that can be addressed, that should be addressed, we're all painfully aware of them. They're in the public eye. I mean, you don't have to be a member of MUFON to know that it's not the most diverse group. The majority of the members that are in power positions tend to be Caucasian men of a certain age. There's not equal representation for women or minorities. That's an issue. the racism issue, the missteps on a professional level, business with Bigelow, the business with the TDSA. Those are issues that have either been missteps or issues that were not addressed that should be addressed, but they're not. Somehow it's just ignored or swept under the rug or what have you. And when one negative issue like this comes up with the Harzan arrest, it spotlights those negative issues again when they've kind of gone by the wayside and people have forgotten about them, and enough time has gone by that people have forgotten about Ventry. They've kind of forgotten about TDSA. They've kind of gone by the wayside. Now we're thinking about more prevalent issues that are happening now. But when something like this happens, it casts a spotlight there, and it's a negative thing. How do we address that? We need to address the issues, but beyond that, I don't know how we dig out of that. It's a pretty substantial hole. And
William, this is William, it's Melinda. I personally think, and I hope to God board members are listening to this. If they're not listening live, they'll get word and listen to the recording later. I think a bunch of us are going to tell them, you need to hear this. I think they need to put out a zero tolerance policy statement that sexism, racism, any form of illegal activity, that they have zero tolerance. And they just did set a precedence with saying he's been removed. Jan's been removed. This is it. New director, period. We're moving on. This is how they should have acted all along. And if they have a zero tolerance policy, they need to they can seize this moment to make that statement.
Amen.
And I really hope they do.
They should. They should. Will they? I don't know. I mean, but in a roundabout way, because of the Ventry, the way they dragged their feet with that situation, they did not have, when this happened with Harzan, they didn't have the luxury of taking their time. They had to make a quick decision to terminate him. So I don't know if that's the board really acting the way they should, or that bar was set pretty low because of what transpired earlier. But you're right. There should be a zero tolerance for this kind of abhorrent behavior. That's a common sense suggestion. That's a reasonable course of action. Will that happen? I don't know.
Well, I mean, don't forget they did act very quickly as well when New Jersey State Director Ken Pfeiffer made the hideous comment regarding Black Lives Matter that said, I would have picked their cotton for them if I thought it would end this BLM racist madness. I mean, they did jump on that very quickly as well. So we do have to say that they were starting to take that direction. But I mean, is it a matter, James, of too little too late?
I think the problem for me, the biggest thing that I see is that they keep doing the same thing over and over again, which is the definition of insanity. Yeah. And the problem is that the board is self-perpetuating and there is no outside input. And yet at the same time, I'm torn in three different directions by this. I'm appalled by what Mr. Harzan got arrested for. At the same time, I have to say, I don't think he liked me and I didn't like him. I don't like how he handled the state directorships. I don't like how he handled MUFON because I saw it as too much of a give and take situation. The states gave and he took. He hired a business consultant who spent an hour asking me how soon I could incorporate and how much money I could donate. I mean, I could go on from there, but at the same time, I know that there are excellent, highly qualified people in some of the very successful larger chapters of MUFON who could be equal to the task of running the entire organization. But the way the board is structured, I don't see that they're ever going to have a chance of being considered. Okay. I really don't. And that's where the problem is.
And I'd like to get a little input in how to actually accomplish that, if I could, Dave. There's many corporate entities, organizations that find themselves at a crossroads for a turning point of whether they're going to survive, whether they're going to thrive. And basically, at this point, there is a massive opportunity for change, for positive change in an organization that's been around for decades, that has got some baggage that needs to be, emptied. Let's put it that way. But one of the first things that you want to do is you want to review the corporate entity itself. Is the way MUFON is structured, like James was saying, is that the best corporate entity or whatever organization that they've got together now? Is that the best thing to do? The next thing would be to actually come up and review the entire bylaws of the organization, either the operating agreement if they want to do an LLC, the bylaws if they want to do some kind of a corporate entity, because in reality, if your bylaws don't allow for flexibility and change and, the whole idea that transparency needs to be built right into the system, then that's when these problems come about. So I would totally agree with James, and I know his successor, Maureen Morgan, thinks the same way, is that there are many people in MUFON right now who are literally excited for some kind of change for the better.
Okay.
Cheryl here.
Yeah, please jump in, Cheryl.
Go ahead. Okay, look, Jan is a veteran of IBM. I had spent 14 years with them before our division was sold to Lockheed. So I know something about their culture, the IBM culture, which he retired from. And one of the things was the IBM really clearly was in the high diversity recognition mode. And I don't see where he brought that into, you would have thought with that kind of background, he would have brought that kind of mindset to MUFON when he came there in 2013. And that hasn't happened. And I personally, I couldn't be a member of the organization because it was too darn misogynistic. And I just said, I can't be here. And my spouse felt the same way about it. So we made sure we were not part of it. It just wasn't right. And I almost reached out to him about a year ago and said, look, hon, you've got a real serious image problem. I used to work with diversity at the Aerospace Corporation. Can I help you do this? But they seemed to be going through all kinds of other hoops and didn't have time to talk to me. So the heck with it,
Yeah, and that's what sucks about it, because, the diversity of everything has to improve. Okay, the days of the old boys club has to end. This isn't about a bunch of suits sitting around in 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And I realize that the majority of the board understands that. Okay, but when I look at this, Bob, how do they move forward here? What goes on here? How do they move forward?
Well, I do like the notion of having a wide open, diverse view towards a selection of the permanent new executive chair. They can also reorganize the entire corporation. And of course, that depends on the articles of incorporation, the bylaws, and the charter for the corporation as to how they actually have to move. So they ought to term limit board members so that they constantly get new blood. In major corporations, this happens all the time. They term limit them and they move them off and so forth. Large shareholders in publicly traded corporations can be on boards forever because they have lots of power. But this is not a publicly traded corporation. The next thing is they need to be, in my opinion, more actively engaged throughout interesting things that are going on in ufology. For example, the SCU, which is the scientific group, the Coalition for UAP Study, they could work with them. It has hundreds of scientists and engineers, from academic professors to hobbyists, et cetera, and that'd be an excellent group to affiliate with, support, and promote. There are multiple groups that are putting together sensors for the detection of anomalous objects in the sky and underwater. They're already involved with one that does magnetic field search, and then the one that I'm involved with is Skyhub, doing all sorts of really modern machine learning, artificial intelligence, video, radio, EMF, accelerometers, et cetera, all in a new inexpensive package, and just get involved. And the problem with the field of ufology is for so many decades, there's not been anyone asserting any kind of actual leadership. And I don't mean come out and be a dictator. I mean, lead by example, put resources toward this leadership. And if it's done in the right way, where they actively engage in something besides lousy TV show and movie making, they can have a big impact.
Yeah.
Agreed, Bob.
Also, oh my goodness, it's just so awful.
Also, one of the other problems too is the direction of MUFON for forever has been purely the hard sciences. Okay. And I tried at the last conventions I went to, I tried to bring up the topic with people about the idea of we need to be involving more of the social sciences in this stuff, okay? Because there's an aspect to that, and I was right there with the aliens. I was from Mars. They didn't want to talk about it,
So I want to add one comment to that before I hog all this little segment. Is right now, throughout the fields of science, from social sciences to hard physics and mathematics, the underlying science of consciousness is really beginning to take off.
Absolutely.
MUFON could be a really great organizer of sources of experimentation for these physicists, mathematicians, psychologists, etc., to work on this stuff, neuroscientists, etc. MUFON could be a major source of advancement in the field of consciousness if they would take a leadership role.
This is Melinda. I agree with everything you guys are saying, but I think MUFON still sees itself stuck back in time to a certain degree, of that they're about sightings and the data of sightings and collecting that. Now, of course, Cheryl, I know there's great value in that. But I think that they choose to have a limited view on this. I agree with you. I wish they would reconsider that and grow with the rest of ufology.
Along with that, I've had to try and. Right now, I can go out to a website and pull down National UFO Reporting Center data, and I can have it cleaned up to give you statistics within 2 hours. I have to go and beg for a data dump from MUFON. Why haven't they started publicly keeping a website? Oh, they want to vet everything.
Let me. That was one of the things I was negotiating with Jan about, which is. I spent a long time in it working for the United States government, and one of the things they are required to do is automatically anonymize data sets. So I had a lot of experience doing that. I was offering to do that, anonymize it in a way, put keys in for names, keys in for personally identifiable information, and then make the data set available in a Google Kaggle. A Google Kaggle is a data structure where data scientists from all over the world can operate in an open source, open data, open specification manner. And Newfork did this with their data set. They had 150 data scientists, first-class people from all over the world walk up and do great stuff with that data set. If MUFON did it, they could utterly transform the field. We could take it and we could, from their data set, synthesize actual sightings and then train machine learning models to do detection, assessment, characterization, classification, et cetera, and probability of it being real or not real, or are fake or not fake, do all this stuff, and over time build actual tools that'll help the entire field. They just need to move into the modern era.
Is that possible, though, as we got about 4 minutes to go here before we go to break here? Michael W. Hall, is it possible for MUFON to come out of this and still be a functioning member of the UFO world?
Well, I think Peter Davenport at NUFORC, National UFO Reporting Center, a longtime client of mine, has shown a good example of that. I mean, this is a guy that's been doing this for 4 decades, and working on free information for ufology for all that period of time. And he was able to step up to the plate, as Bob McGwier was mentioning, and open up the database to scientists that they could actually disseminate this information. And Peter has always had that, So that is a good example of what MUFON could do. And let's not forget, as Maureen Morgan is part of this ERT research team, the experiencer research team at MUFON, where literally they are well beyond, they have the capability to be well beyond just the nuts and bolts of ufology when they're talking about experiencers and what they're actually doing out there in the field. And of course, Grant Cameron says, that's what we should be doing, studying experiencers and their subjective experiences that they're having out there as well. So I think there are hopes for the future of MUFON and the new board of directors. Literally, I don't know if the board is going to can afford to remain the same in this regard. Talk about diversity. This is exactly what needs to be done with the board of directors so that they can actually do a whole revamp of the bylaws of the corporate entity if they have to get this thing relevant.
Is that possible, though, James?
Boy, that's asking an awful lot. You're asking people who've held positions of power to give up their power and authority for the good of the organization. Wow.
Sometimes a shock like this gets them to think twice.
And maybe it will. I would like to think the best of it, that some people would be willing to do that. And there's got to be some attrition anyway, because let's face it, some of the people, people have been saying, well, why Dave McDonald? Well, some of the people on the board are getting way up there in years and may not want and may not be able to function under the pressure of being a director of an entire organization. It may not be, they may not be capable of it, literally.
That's very
So how many
true.
people do they have to choose from? I'm talking about temporary, not long term.
Melinda?
No, I just said yep. I just fully agree there. MUFON needs to court some of the young people in this field.
Yes.
It was some of the younger folk in the field that were making those points that Bob brought up a while back. They're very active. They're very active, extremely, we all know, they're extremely active on social media. And, MUFON needs to court some of these individuals to maybe be involved. It's definitely time for new blood, young blood, social media blood, for sure.
And
I think so.
I'm going to steal this right here because we are going to go to break here in just a few seconds. The problem with the younger crowd that I see is the way they know how to network, the way they know how to use social media to their advantage. They don't need MUFON. That's the unfortunate part. They don't need MUFON when they could do it all on their own. Spaced Out Radio special edition on MUFON tonight continues with Melinda Leslie, James Clarkson, Cheryl Costa, Michael W. Hall, Bob McGwier, and William Pullin next.
They don't need MUFON for what they do, but they need MUFON's data, MUFON's connections, MUFON's, etc., and they need to work together with those people because MUFON has a lot to offer.
Yeah, I agree. I've been trying to work with them. I've been trying to work with them. And a couple of different times when I have tried to get a data dump from them, somebody would give me a data dump and it was crap. Okay. Right now, I have a major error in my database for hour of the sighting because the data I was given is messed up. Okay. And this is because different people, I never got a consistent person to get the data, pull the data for me. And I was asking for very little. I was going what, when, where, and what shape. And I needed to know date and time. And I did not consistently get the time field. And it did not seem like there was somebody who was really in charge of the data. And as far as doing all these wonderful things, that requires leadership and somebody with some vision. And right now,
this is shocking, Cheryl, because it was my understanding there was kind of one person who's been involved in doing that database and leading it for decades.
That's what I understood too. And but when they always pointed me at somebody else when I had to ask for the data. The first time we asked for it to build up the original book, I went round and round with the person for almost 2 months. Finally, my spouse got on the phone and played executive with them, and I had it in 20 minutes. Okay. They were asking me more questions about what we were doing than supplying my requirement. Okay. And it was like they were trying to get into my business. They wanted my entire project plan, all this stuff. And I told them, no, you're going to steal my book. Okay. And it wasn't until the book was coming out did Jan even hear about it. He calls me up. You can't publish that. Oh my God, you're going to out everybody. And I said, no, all we got is what, when, and where, and what shape. But there was bad communication between whoever was doing IT stuff and communications and all that other stuff. It was horrible. And I'm getting ready. I want to do a 2021 book looking at the last 20 years. And with all of this, I don't know who the heck I'm going to be reaching out and talking to. I need a data dump for 2019 and 2020. And I don't know who the hell I'm going to talk to this time.
Wow.
That's heavy.
And right now, Linda and I are the only two people doing statistics.
So. And Cheryl, it sounds like you got your finger on it. Like they have a technology disconnect there. And whether that's, as we mentioned before, an age-related thing, an old mindset that they have, versus a technology mindset. But for MUFON to grow and move forward, they need to get with it with the technology for sure. I mean, come on.
Maybe somebody could correct me here, but my recollection, I joined this organization in like 1987. It seems to me that the MUFON database used to be freely accessible to the public.
Oh, no. Used to be, yeah.
But they decided to go to this pay-to-play thing in order to draw in members.
Yep.
And I did go to them. I did go to Jan. This is before we did a book, when I was starting to write my column. And I went to him and I said, can I have access like an investigator would have, so I can do research? Oh, no, you have to be a field investigator to have that thing. It's written in the rules. So I couldn't do that. Okay. And because of my journalistic restriction, we had a very strict conflict of interest policy. I couldn't join MUFON, let alone become one of their field investigators. I've got 2 of them field investigator manuals sitting over there on the shelf. I could pass their test. The problem is I couldn't be as a journalist.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I know that feeling all too well. Yeah. We've got about 45 seconds here before we're going to come back on air, and I want to get into, how can MUFON clean this up? Okay, is it even possible, or has it gone too far? And that's kind of where I kind of want to focus this next half hour here on it, because I mean, in the end, there's a lot of people. I mean, the cancel crowd out there, they want them gone. And I don't agree with that. Okay, I don't agree with that at all, and that's just my opinion on it. If you guys feel differently, please voice it on the air. But I think that it's getting real pushy around here. That we have to figure out how do we clean this mess up? Is it even possible? So we're gonna get going here right now, everyone. And
Dave,
a
quick request can I make?
Where music is on, Melinda. Hold on.
Okay.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. If you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. We have a special show tonight talking about MUFON after their former executive director Jan Harzan was arrested in trying to lure a 13-year-old girl in California for sexual acts. It happened to be a police officer in a sting raid, which, we commend the police in Huntington Beach, California, for being able to catch him as well as others. And we also must remember that, the court of public opinion is highly different than the court of law. Emotion tells us that Jan Harzan needs to go away for a long time and never come back and stay under the rock or the prison cell that he's going to be in. But it does come down to that he is innocent until proven guilty, and he has not gone to court yet. It is he has been charged, and this is what we're continuing on with our panel tonight with Melinda Leslie, James Clarkson, Cheryl Costa, Michael W. Hall, Bob McGwier, and William Pullin. And I want to focus this half hour. And, William, let's start with you as being a former MUFON director or MUFON member here. How does MUFON start to clean this up? Because in my opinion, this is not a quick fix. Okay. This is going to take years. And I believe that the board of directors currently knows that, they understand that, and they gotta be turning over every rock that they possibly can to look and see what is under it. So if you were asked to take over MUFON, where do you start cleaning this mess up?
I don't know. I mean, I immediately think of a comment that James made off air that we're asking people in position of power to voluntarily give up that power to precipitate change. I don't know if that's a reasonable thing to ask. I don't know if they will. I mean, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take some change from within, some restructuring. And you're absolutely right. It's going to take a long time. This is not a quick process. This will be a troublesome, problematic, difficult grind of an effort to get them where they need to be. It has to happen. Will it happen? I don't know, because you're still relying on, it's still on some level going to rely on people giving up power that they've had for quite a while. And we're talking about human beings here. And when a person has been pigeonholed in a position of power, they've been there for a while. They're comfortable there. They've always had that ability to influence the direction of a organization or what have you. Are they willing to come out of their comfort shell and give up some of that power? A lot of people are not comfortable at all doing that. They won't even entertain that possibility. So that's a big first step. Will it happen? I don't know. I mean, and then the changes that have to happen are. Some are relatively common sense, reasonable changes that need to be made. That can relatively be easily made. Other ones are a little more systematic. They're a little more an examination of the group itself. I mean, the board of directors, there aren't many young people in that group.
No.
So that shows that their diversity doesn't just extend on racial lines. It runs along age lines too. That the majority of people running MUFON at the higher levels tend to be of a certain age, and I'm not ageist at all, but it's just a statement of fact. There isn't anybody that say, I don't know anybody under 40 as far as that group. That's troublesome, because you want the new blood in the field to have a different point of view, a different take, a different opinion, a different way of looking at this UFO problem. And they're younger generations that are more capable of interacting on social media and interacting with the public in a different way. That's a change that needs to happen too. I don't know how we get there, because another comment offline was also that the younger generations, they don't need MUFON. They're very active and proactive. They're doing things on their own. They don't need an organization. So would they come out of their shell and align themselves with MUFON, knowing of MUFON's problems? They may not happen either. So this is a very difficult problem. It's going to take a long time to fix.
They lost membership after the Ventry thing.
Absolutely.
A thing like this could deep six them in terms of membership. And of course, membership fees help put money in the coffers and things. I mean, they could literally, and at the convention, what if this impacts the convention, which is a big moneymaker for them?
Cheryl, I want to ask you a question here. Cheryl, I want to ask you a question here. Okay, younger people are very adept to social media. They know how to take advantage of it in a positive, sometimes negative way. But the way younger people are thinking today, and the majority of younger people out there, they're very open-minded. They don't care about race. They don't care about sexual orientation. They don't care about religion. They just want people to be people. And I think it's a great way that society is going in that regard. But why would they a younger person attach themselves to an organization the way MUFON has not really dealt with issues, as some believe, in the past, whether it's racism, whether it's selling information, or anything along those lines? I mean, there is a lot of concern, and young people today are very concerned with what and whom they attach their name to.
That's very true. And since 2013, when I started writing a column, I've watched MUFON to see if there's any kind of outreach for younger people, and there hasn't been. They have not marketed that. All the like the other gentleman said, all they've managed to do is put on a couple of crappy TV shows, and that's the problem. They haven't been marketing this stuff, and you can't have a group like that has gotten as gray as it is.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of gray hair in that organization. And Chris, I've tried to, I'd write a positive article about MUFON, and I would get hammered on social media for even saying nice things about them, because they're this, they're that, and all this other stuff. I don't trust them. And I keep the plethora of excuses of why, and they were all very valid reasons. Okay. And particularly it got worse after the Ventry thing.
Yeah. And then go ahead, Melinda.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that, Cheryl, which goes back to my saying, I think they need to make some very, public statements, written statements about their policies and zero tolerance, because to start to change things, you've got to state that going forward, we have zero tolerance for these things, for sexism, racism, misogyny, whatever. We have zero tolerance. And anyone found, espousing that in any, way, they need to just let them go, because they've got to change their attitude about that. That gets into the, the social changes. And then I think they can start, approaching the young people, and show that they are technology conscious, and go after Bob, like you were saying, a bunch of things that you were working on, and all those other groups you were talking about. I think if they showed that they were going towards the technology, and they made their policy on these issues very clear, I think they have to do both of those things, and that's how they'll get the young people.
And the bottom line, it's a PR problem at the bottom line.
Yes.
Because in the last 8 years, I've never seen them try to reach out and say, we want you, come be part of us, come learn to be a field investigator. No, they're not doing that. They're not reaching out. And
well, they're selling books to field operations people, but they're not supporting them. They're not promoting them. They're not providing leadership to them. They have this humongous collection of unbelievably capable volunteers that they're just neglecting.
Exactly.
Well, that's well said.
James,
Yes.
I want to ask you, if somebody came to you, James, and said, we're handing you the keys over to MUFON right now, and here's a broom, here's a dustpan, what's the first couple of things you are doing?
Well, I probably things that wouldn't be legal. I really do.
Well
I
played.
really do believe the problem starts at the board level. They just will not change the way the board is structured, and nobody from there's a huge gap between all of the state directors and headquarters. And that's the gap that I never figured out how to get over. And they didn't seem to care. I especially found that group, that's my personal opinion, but I didn't find that Jan Harzan really seemed to care about anything that would make it easier to be a state director. And then I cannot tell you how many new investigators I lost because they would question, why do we go through this huge, complicated report form for a simple light in the sky case? And I would have to tell them, because that's what they require. You know, I don't agree with it either, but that's the way the system is set up. MUFON is the only investigative organization in the entire world that I know of that does not screen incoming cases. Some of the things that I got assigned to me that drove me out of MUFON were just unbelievable, that they would put a case number on that and force me to do a report on it. And how am I going to explain that to a younger person who takes one look at it and says, this is stupid? I don't know.
I don't know if it could be any more clear than that, Michael W. Hall.
Yeah. Really, we've got to get down to the bottom line of all the things that have been wrong with MUFON in the past can be changed overnight if there is a will on behalf of the board. I mean, that's the major thing. And indeed, if the board has the will, they can even say to themselves, you know what, we've been around here long enough, you folks. We need to get new blood in here. Maybe I'm going to step aside and allow that to happen. Here's some suggestions for you, but this might be an opportunity for the MUFON board to really make this organization something that we could be proud of in ufology, that is transparent, is able, to be able to be approached by scientists, like Cheryl, and journalists and people that really want to solve this problem. We don't need to hide the ball any longer in ufology. As we all know, folks, things are happening so quickly around us on a daily basis as far as disclosure goes. I mean, we can't afford at this point any infighting at all, because in reality, our world could change any day now. And that's what I'm looking forward to. And I think that MUFON could be a major force in that regard if they want to be.
Well, here's the other thing, too. All right. They have to start bringing in, and I said this publicly last night on the show, they need to start bringing in some new blood to clean this up. They need to start bringing in people who have no affiliation with the group in order to give them free rein to turn over every rock, to look in every file folder and ask hard questions. And I believe strongly in that it needs to be, there needs to be some sort of accountability with everything that goes along. That being said, they also probably need to have stricter protocols on who can, just because you have money that you want to pay for your MUFON membership doesn't mean that you deserve a membership. Okay, they don't need fake scientists. They don't need fake journalists or people who are just padding a resume in order to make themselves look better in this field. What they need is accountability, and people maybe from the outside, maybe hire an independent group of 2 or 3 people and look into everything almost like an ombudsman would. Bob, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's very much exactly what's needed. The new faces, new help, carefully recruited with something that is needed. So kind of a roadmap, a list and a roadmap for here's how we're going to pick them and here's who we're looking for. And they can find people, because there are lots of people that care about the subject. And what's needed is active, caring, involved leadership.
I agree.
You don't want much, do you?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so how do we get there, Bob? How do we get there? If you're on this board of directors,
they need a selection process.
Okay.
Yeah. Open up a search. Have a worldwide search for the right kind of person, and then maybe pick 2 or 3 slots they would like to fill, whether it's the executive director. One of the greatest losses of the Ventry deal was the loss of Cogswell as the director of research. You already knew I was going to go there. So it's just awful. And he was doing what needs doing, which was revitalizing the field people in order to aim them with soft leadership at doing the science, the nuts and bolts part, and maybe other parts could use. But we the community need science done on consciousness, materials, processing of imagery to try to remove some of the giggle factor and the stuff that's submitted. And there's lots of tools. There's fantastic tools that will stabilize images, that will automatically do super resolution on these images, and you can actually blow them up without making them blurry through the magic of machine learning. And it's like no one is actively engaged in the work at MUFON of even attempting to find out what could be done. They need to be fully engaged or get out of the way.
There's a bit of a PR issue here in one other sense. I'm looking at the statement from the board of directors. It is signed, kind regards, Cassie F., whoever Cassie F. is, MUFON office assistant. Nowhere on there does it list the bloody board by name. They don't even want to be associated. Why can't they stand up and be suck it up and be men or women or whatever and say, we are the board. We take responsibility for the fact that we had to drop this guy. But nobody is on there. We got some office assistant signed the bloody letter underneath the MUFON board of directors statement.
Wow, that
is cowardice.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, like I said, leadership of the right kind is needed. I'm not talking about authoritarianism. That's exactly what's not needed.
How about a board that will stand up?
You need a board that will stand up and provide soft and encouraging leadership and lead by example.
Is that person out there? Are they affiliated with MUFON or are they not?
Oh,
I'm sure they're going to get preference to internal membership.
Yeah,
but
I realized I was muted. This is Melinda. Dave, I think so. I think there's good people in there. I think too. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. My understanding is, you move up, and how the board is selected is from people who moved up and shown themselves and move on as field investigators and as state section directors. And, you move up that way, which I think is, rewarded along the way. I guess I don't have a problem with that, but you end up not choosing the board based on knowledge and experience and their backgrounds and everything. And that's, maybe the board needs to be more on that and less on rewarding someone who moved up through the ranks. That's just my thought. That's probably what they would also need to do here. I also want to address Michael Hall, Michael, you said something there and started to get into it about that there's so much going on in the field with disclosure. And, and that made me reflect on the timing of all this going on being so not problematic. It shouldn't reflect on that. But Cheryl, and you can address this in a media mindset, it will. And so
absolutely,
not only is this a question of can MUFON survive this, and I think we've addressed so well what they would need, to do in many ways. And I know that a big issue for them, and it was always something Jan was trying to go for, was money. One of the reasons they did TV shows and other stuff is they were trying to get money to then engage in some of these things. And that we're talking people who have volunteer positions. Maybe the fact that this is a volunteer organization, with the exception of Jan and the people in the office, you go, well, wait a second. This is a volunteer organization and that may be self-limiting in a certain way that keeps them from being able to grow in these directions that we're talking about, because there's not the money there for the time and energy and what it's needed to do the technical things and all that that we're talking about. So I could see how that's kind of a catch-22 for them. And, I guess they just have to get people who care enough to volunteer and put in the time. And that's, easier said than done, I guess.
I'd like to offer one point. You brought up a point, Melinda, which I think is really valuable and needs stressing. In large volunteer organizations, that are like 501c3 organizations, which MUFON is one of these nonprofit educational and research organizations. The IRS calls them 501c3s for those that don't know. The board is typically lovers of the organization that have something the organization needs, like money or leadership or organizational skills. And what they do is set policy and elect excellent executives to run the organization. But what they do is they don't vote on every action. That's up to the executive. And so the executives come to the board and give a report on how they carried out the mission and the directives of the board. And that's how a well-run organization is done. You can't have mixing of roles or things don't get done right. They need to think they need to think it through about who goes on the board.
We have about 1 minute left before we got to go to break. Okay. Cheryl, go ahead.
Okay, real quick thing. We're on the, and we need to talk about this when we come back. We're on the edge here of possible disclosure in the very near future, depending upon how the election goes. Okay, and it's going to be complicated because a bunch of us might end up being called in front of Congress to testify.
You're right. You're right. And that's the dangers of everything. And this couldn't have happened at a worse time. I mean, MUFON, I shouldn't say MUFON, but with Jan Harzan being arrested, I mean, how much momentum does this actually take out of the entire UFO game? Or are we, because we are passionate about the subject, we're close to the subject, are we actually blowing it out of proportion and making it a bigger deal than what it is? Do we see Fox News or CNN or the New York Times covering this? I don't know.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Why would they?
Exactly. That's the whole point.
You've got people out of work all across this country.
COVID is dominating the news cycle.
Exactly.
And you've got massive economic disruption and people who are feeling scared and insecure.
James, I'm going to get you to hold on right
frankly.
there. I'm going to get you to hold on right there. I apologize. We're going to go to break at the top of the hour, our special edition of Spaced Out Radio with our panel talking MUFON right after this in hour 3. All right, guys, I just got to run my dogs outside one more time here, one final time here. I'll be right back. You guys chat away.
Could I take a huge risk and ask the group a question?
Sure.
Do it.
The comment that was made about the next election, depending on how it would come out, would influence disclosure. Can somebody take a big risk and tell me exactly what they're saying with that statement?
Okay. Me and Steve Bassett have regular conversations on this topic matter. And there's there have been plenty of senators and congressmen that have been getting the classified briefing ever since, over the past year with all the tic-tac talk. Okay. And what's happened is a lot of them are positioning, and Rubio's one in particular, are positioning themselves to be in the know after the election, assuming that, taking the assumption that there's a good chance Biden would win. And if that's the case, all those people who were in a position to reveal stuff within the government out to the world, and also possibly help instigate congressional inquiries, congressional hearings, whatever, all these congressmen are positioning themselves to be part of that. And they see where the wind is blowing on this thing. And what's bothering me is that there's a lot of really talented people from our community that might get called on the thing. Like Linda and I had to talk about this honestly. We've got the only book of statistics, and we know the Congressional Information Office has 5 copies. Okay. Wow. So, if they do call these kinds of things and want to get information, who the hell is MUFON going to send now? Okay, so they don't have a Cogswell to go there. They don't have a Hardinson to go there now. We've got a problem.
Well, one other thing I want to bring up is I don't know whether any of you saw it, but you may have seen Trump being interviewed by his son, and they brought up Roswell, and the president made comments about, I've been told about Roswell. That stuff is really interesting. So people don't really understand the actual power the United States gives the people it elects president. So Barack Obama walked up on a stage, hung a medal around a guy, and mentioned the word Area 51, and that declassified it. I believe it's very likely that Donald Trump, in making the statements he made to his son, it being an open forum, talking to an uncleared person about a classified topic, may have automatically declassified Roswell.
I would agree.
Well, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. You guys, I've been following closely, and I've done some recent lengthy interviews. Bob, I know you're aware of this, on the Senate subcommittee, a Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and the report that Rubio did, and the proposal that's going before Congress to get into, what they want included in the intelligence bill for next year on the UAP subject. And very, very real thing. It was made public. I'm sure you've all read it. And I talked to, Jim Semivan at length about that. And I did a full interview with Grant. Granted, we don't really get into the Semivan part until about 45 minutes into it. So if anyone hasn't watched it, you can fast forward to like 40 minutes into it. But I talked to him about that, and this is a very real thing that's happening. They are asking for this task force to a task force overseen by the DNI, National Intelligence, or Director, I should say, of National Intelligence, to oversee. And then the ONI is involved, which is the Office of Naval Intelligence, with putting the task force together. but oversight from the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, and then to then submit a report to Congress in 180 days. And my discussions with Jim at length got into that. This is just the beginning, obviously, of a long process of them getting additional reports and additional information. And it's initially, the first report's going to get into what do all the branches of the intelligence community know on this subject, or what have they done with groups and organizations and task force and blah, 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 looking into it. So like in the stovepipes, as we know. So they're going to ask that initially in the first report. But Jim was telling me they have they being to the stars, have every intention on keeping on the senators to get them to keep going and ask for the next part and the next part and the next part.
Absolutely.
And so we talked all about that and the implications. But the point being, I think this reflects on what you were saying, Cheryl, because it is going to be a long ways away still for hearings. Yeah, could they get there? But this is going to be a long process and again, it's supposed to be that this report going back to the senators is unclassified and will be made public.
I got to cut you off, Melinda. I got to cut you off right there because we're about to come back. I want to quickly ask the panel quickly. I know we're only scheduled for another half hour, but do you guys want to go the distance on the show tonight?
Go.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Here we go,
Make sure
guys.
you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
All right, mute.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, with a special edition of Spaced Out Radio tonight. This is all because MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network in the United States, is dealing with a real problem right now in ufology after former executive director Jan Harzan was arrested earlier this month on trying to lure a 13-year-old girl who happened to be a police officer in a sting. And he has been removed from his position. And we have a special panel of well-respected ufologists around the world here. Tonight, we have ufologist Melinda Leslie, former MUFON state director in Washington State, James Clarkson, Cheryl Costa, great journalist in ufology. We have paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall, UFO historian William Pullin, and scientist Bob McGwier. And we're going to continue this. And the panel has graciously accepted to stay for the full show tonight. We're going to be skipping the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave, running with this. This show is just way too important tonight for this. So I thank the panel for staying a little bit longer as we continue on about this. And, you know, right before the break, we were talking about disclosure. We seem to be getting, in the field of ufology, inching ever closer to the ultimate disclosure, which is what does the world, and especially the United States government, and me being up in Canada, the Canadian government, know about UFOs and extraterrestrials visiting here. Now, I got to ask you, and Cheryl, I want to kick this off with you here from a journalism background. Okay, with this story, does this set back at all the disclosure movement?
I don't think it's hinging on one guy, but it's going to impact us. Okay, one thing a lot of people aren't keeping in thought, you know, that story that Pentagon came out and talked about the images being real during the peak of the lockdown. Okay, the COVID lockdown. I was having a conversation with Ralph Blumenthal at the New York Times, and I said, "What's your take on this?" He said, "They just confirmed our story from December 16th, 2017. Okay, and kind of the consensus on the phone calls is maybe we are getting a lot closer to disclosure than we thought. Okay, so there's a lot going on here, and I just had, like I said, like a 90-minute conversation with Steve Bassett about 2 weeks ago, and as journalist, I'm positioning myself to ask the right people the right questions when the time comes. So we're getting close. Is this going to hurt us? Yes. Some of us are going to have to be in front of the cameras and gosh, yes, okay. Someone's going to put a microphone in one of our faces and say, wow, this whole thing going on with the government and everything, the congressional hearings. What about that guy that got convicted or got arrested for this? We're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to come up with a good standard answer of how we're going to deal with that. Okay, a lot of us are going to have to do that. So that's my thought. Okay.
Well, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Disclosure is coming.
William Pullin
is coming.
Let's bring you in here, UFO historian. This is a story that has always kind of been shuffled to the back corner. We have talked about that numerous times on Reality Paranormal and on SOR roundtables that you have been a part of. How does this currently, in your opinion, impact any future movement forward? Or does it? Does it put more credence into what groups like Peter Davenport are doing or the To the Stars Academy?
I don't think it really hurts the research community as per se. I think it hurts the perception people have of the community, which is kind of splitting hairs, I guess. But I tend to disagree. I don't think disclosure is going to happen. But if it does, I don't think the actions of one individual will change that momentum. But I think it's a negative. It's another black eye for the UFO community. But I don't think if disclosure is actually going to happen, I don't think it would influence that in a negative way at all. It influences the perception of the community. It influences our ability to maybe garner the attention of more highly qualified individuals, scientists and the like, to examine this in a legitimate way, because they see the black eyes of the community and they say, well, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole because this guy got arrested for this, that, and the other, and typical of the community, I'll just stay away. So in that way, it affects us. But I think MUFON, they made their decision. They terminated them. They're trying to move past it. They did as good of a job with damage control as they can, given the circumstances. Given that the board, I think, just didn't know what was going on. So beyond that, I think they've done the best they can. So it's a negative thing, but I don't think it's not a huge deal, which is not to lessen the importance of what he's being accused of. But in the grand scheme of things, the actions of one individual in a negative way, I don't think it really has a huge influence. It does have an influence, but not a huge influence on what's going to go on or may go on.
All right, Bob, I want to ask you, okay, as someone who is a newcomer with a relatively impressive resume that you have, okay, I want to ask you this. This is a field that is rife with people who claim to be scientists but have no scientific degree, is rife with people who claim to be journalists but have no journalism degree, rife with people who say they have investigative experience but have never really worked in a field of investigation. All right. When I look at this, okay, and I take a look, to me, that's what makes this field a little bit of a joke. Okay, MUFON aside, this whole situation aside. So for somebody like you who has the resume, who has the credentials to come on in here and take a look at this field, you must be, along with your colleagues, absolutely dumbfounded on how we've been able to find anything out.
I'm only going to talk about Skyhub. Almost to a person, the people that are leading Skyhub, from Steve to Corey to Adam, etc., the people that are actually in charge of different portions of it, they are not touching any part of what most people call the field of ufology, because what they want to do is gather data
objectively and put it up so that anyone can do it. So I agree with you, Dave. I agree with your premise is that people that are doing actual real good work don't really want to be too tangled up with some parts of ufology. And then there's the Scientific Coalition for the Study of UAPs. They also are having talks that are generated by internal members who are doing scientific and or engineering work, and they don't deal with a lot of the parts of ufology. I want to disagree with Cheryl only slightly in the following sense. There's not a person anywhere near the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence that's ever going to call somebody from the field of ufology and do something in public. They might talk to them in private, and they won't do it themselves. They will send a staffer. They're just not going to publicly associate it with us because of our heritage of our history of engaging with people. Michael can tell that I'm struggling to be careful. Look, all of you have been to conventions. Just imagine the chairman or the ranking member of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence walking through one of these conventions and trying to decide which one of the people that they can see would they actually talk to on a serious subject. We do it to ourselves.
Agreed, Bob.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yes,
Bob, this is Melinda. I totally 100% agree. And this, coming back to this incident with Jan and with MUFON, it's an incident with Jan, but its effect on MUFON, et cetera. You're right. And Cheryl said, we're going to have to address this. And this is a further blemish that, unfortunately, it's guilt by association, that we have a serious image problem in ufology. I've actually been saying for years, as we've gone closer and inching closer, pretty over the last 2 years towards disclosure, and when To the Stars got so involved, I said, look, we're going to be left in the dust. The disclosure is not going to be ufology. It's not going to be, Greer and Bassett and, whatever, it's going to be these guys and what they're doing. And I realized that, ufology was at risk of, first off, some people in ufology have done good research over the years, without a doubt, research and historical research and et cetera. And we should be, on some issues, the go-to people, certainly when it comes to the abduction subject and whatnot, and so there should be that we have a voice and a stand in that. But I've always said we're at risk of this getting away from us, and anything that starts to make ufology look goofy and ufologists look goofy, like this incident, puts us at further risk that way. And I think ufology, my bottom line here is ufology needs to really clean up its act. And we have to have, in ufology, not just MUFON, ufology has to have a zero tolerance policy for all the bullshit, because we need to move forward and have an image that has respect. And thank God people like you guys, particularly you, Bob, coming into the field, bringing the credibility, and it's like, come on, guys, let's rise to meet Bob at that level, and the people doing the scientific work. Let's rise to that level. We have to watch what we say, have zero tolerance for complete nonsense, for the hoaxers, and for the people who put on the freaking tinfoil hats at the conferences, and everyone goes, oh, there's a person in alien costume. No, we have to say no, because what if a Senate staffer is there? Come on, guys. If we're going to be a part of the discussion, we need to act accordingly.
I agree. I agree with you on that. As we continue our panel here talking about MUFON and moving on with disclosure, James, as someone who was as a state director in Washington State for MUFON, when you hear the emotions in people that you have contacted you over the last couple of days here, you've seen what's going on social media regarding everything, how do we move forward here? In your opinion, is it even possible to get through this new set of pain? I mean, when Stan Romanek, the experiencer, was busted for child pornography on his computer, okay, it didn't have the impact of somebody like Jan Harzan having this done. Okay, is there a way that the field of ufology can get out of this black eye, and does it even matter?
Well, the quote, I'm a lover of quotes. Bob Dylan line that said, "He not busy being born is busy dying." And that certainly applies here. I really think this is a make or break situation for MUFON. The more I listen to all this, I think that it's going to make itself completely irrelevant if it doesn't undergo a revolutionary change right now. I think we've done like one too many bits of craziness, and the younger generation, these other people on social media, are going to completely bypass us. The biggest danger that I see in ufology right now is not just in ufology, but across the board. We have a huge group of people who are convinced that they are experts in any field of knowledge because they've watched 2 YouTube videos. And suddenly they are authorities on everything. And the business about respecting somebody for their years of service, their education, their expertise, I don't see that happening right now. We've got, I hate to say it, but I see it from the White House all the way down to the street level. Everyone says they're an expert just because they say they are. They're not willing to put in the time, pay the dues, take the lumps, etc. I don't know if MUFON can survive this. I'm not even sure that it should. I honestly don't know. The MUFON as it was can't go on. Something different has to come out of this. Another organization or a boldly revised MUFON, one of the two.
Is that even possible? I mean, that's something that we need to discuss here, because obviously, James, the board of directors is having very many emergency meetings, probably a couple meetings a day now, starting yesterday. And I know they were meeting again today and will probably for the next few days. I do know that certain board members are flying out to California to try and help clean up a lot of this mess and help the investigation as best they can, so on and so forth. And maybe, Michael, I'm going to bring you in here, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer. Okay, so with that happening, is that part of that discussion potentially going to be whether or not MUFON can continue with this?
Oh, definitely. I think if they're doing what they should be doing in those board meetings, is they should be thinking outside the box now. This is the time in their history. And MUFON, I mean, you're talking from 1969. Right? Yes. MUFON split from APRO. I was a member of the APRO field investigator team back in 1974. But in 69, this whole thing split off. It's been there forever. And there has been a lot of baggage that's been brought along with it. And they need to think outside the box at this point. And I think that they will. I think they seem to be motivated, at least from the communications that I'm hearing. It's just depending on how much they want to really make themselves transparent and effective now from this point on.
Hear, hear.
I hope so.
Is that possible? Anybody?
I believe it's possible. I'm essentially an optimist.
If they take on decent leadership
and they tell the people they put in charge, here are our goals. And we're going to come back every quarter and assess the place where we are and modify, tweak, whatever it takes. That's how a well-run corporation works. Is you got these advisors that set policy, somebody does the execution, and if the execution is faulty, the board determines whether or not a replacement is in order or whether the modified direction is in order. And so it's just the way it's got to work. It's got to be a collective process. But for MUFON to go on, it has to start providing leadership to a community that has none.
Yes.
Okay, so let me throw this out there as we got about 4 minutes to go before we go to break here. And Cheryl, I want to start with you. Okay, granted, the other members of the board of directors are not, and we have to take them at their word so far, did not know about this. Should they resign?
No, I don't see where they should resign because they didn't know about something. From what I understand, they've been blindsided. But on the other hand, the fact, in my opinion, the fact that they didn't sign the bloody letter speaks
bad.
Volumes about what.
Yep, that's right.
About how badly they're run out there. Okay, having the staff assistant sign the letter and not even put her last name on there. Nobody wanted to put their name on the dotted line. Nobody wanted to be a target for the phone calls from the media. That speaks volumes about how bad the leadership is there.
I want to give you an alternative explanation.
Okay.
So they couldn't figure out how to sign the document.
This means that they're so out of touch with modern day business, the way things are done today. They don't know how to pass around a document and get electronic signatures. I just signed a mortgage on a new house. Yep. I never saw the people that gave me the paper. I signed it electronically, and that was good enough for the Internal Revenue Service, a bank, and everybody else. They probably didn't know how to sign a document electronically. Rather than say something has malice, I'd rather interpret it as ignorance and incompetence. And they're neither one of them good, but at least one doesn't have evil intent. And I think we shouldn't attribute evil intent yet. I just think it's incompetence. They could have signed the document electronically, and every single one of them should have signed the document.
If nothing else, their name should have just been at the bottom of the bloody letter instead of the staff assistant.
Well, when they had their former PR guy on there, what was his name? Roger Marsh. Okay. My news person, Gail. Okay. Actually, she didn't believe me on this about the whole buying into MUFON from Robert Bigelow. So she actually contacted Roger Marsh, and he stated that never in MUFON's history have they sold data to anybody. And then it later came out that we had somebody on from MUFON who confirmed that in fact, they did. So their own PR department at the time, and thank goodness Roger's no longer there, okay, their own PR department at the time was lying to the public. Lying. We caught them. I still have the email. And so does Gail. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy. And like I said, I've talked to the couple board directors that I know of, and they know my concerns. They know I've been rough and tough on them, as well as many other people. But in the end, as we've got about 1 minute to go here, William, I'm going to bring you back in here. Does MUFON survive this?
I think they can, but to become a productive organization, there has to be wholesale changes. It can't be just a few changes to satisfy the public or try to save membership or whatever, or save face. There has to be wholesale changes. Some of the board of directors, maybe they need to be willing to resign, not because of anything they've done or not done, but because one of the issues need to be addressed is some diversity, some change, some different individuals, new blood in the organization. And some change needs to be made. It's mainly at the top. The local chapters are doing the best they can, in my humble opinion. But there's a wide there's a wide disconnect between when you get to on the state level and then the higher organization. There's like this wide chasm of space where there's a disconnect, and the issues tend to be more prevalent the higher up you go for some reason.
Absolutely.
It's always like that.
Well, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we do have to step out here at the bottom of the hour. The special edition of Spaced Out Radio continues with our panel tonight on the discussion of MUFON. Where do they go from here to get out of this situation caused by former executive director Jan Harzan? Bob McGwier, William Pullin, Cheryl Costa, Michael W. Hall, Melinda Leslie, and James Clarkson are here with us to the top of the hour when we take this thing home. We'll be right back. Okay, we're clear.
David, Cheryl Costa here.
Yes.
I'm listening to about every third word here, so I'm going to drop out because I'm having a hell of a time following this. Okay, thank you everybody. You did it. You've been doing a bang up job. I appreciate being here with you, and I'm honored.
Much love, Cheryl.
Great contribution.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Cheryl Costa, everybody. Let's give her a clap. Cheryl Costa, we love her around here. We love her around here.
Yay.
Cheryl, I'll call you soon. Okay.
Yes. Okay, I got that.
Okay, much love.
Dave, this is Melinda.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and stay on here, but I admit my phone is on a charger plate and it is not charging quite fast enough. It might die. If it dies, I'll probably remain off for a little while and then text you when I've got a little charge built up, and then I can get back on.
Well, we're only going to go.
Okay, so if I cut out, or you go to me and I cut out, just know I'll need like 5 minutes probably to give it an extra charge without being on it.
Not a problem. Not a problem whatsoever. Everybody else is okay.
May I ask a nosy question, Melinda? Do you have your screen blanked?
I didn't, but I'll make it blank. That's a good thing.
The phone burns 1/5 of the power it does if the screen's blanked.
Okay. So I'll let it go blank. The number just jumped up like 2, so that's good. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. This is a good show, everyone.
I started the call with it not charged enough, as much as I needed it to be.
This is a solid. This is a solid show of radio here, everyone. I do appreciate all of you taking the time.
Yeah. Great job, Dave. You're keeping this thing moving along. Like 3 hours.
Dave, you're interviewing so good.
Well, I just, you know what? I owe
as good a panel as you've had.
You know what? I owe all of you a big heartfelt thank you as well, because, usually when we do things like this, there's more time for everybody to talk. And the fact that most of you or all of us are doing more listening than we are talking in regards to everything, you guys are doing a hell of a job at helping me out and creating a good show tonight about this very important topic. So thank you all for your patience and your professionalism and understanding.
You got it.
It's what the world needs.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really good job, Dave. So I'm just, so proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we need to share this, Dave, after you get this up and saved, give us a text, because we need to share this far and wide. People need to hear this conversation.
This show about 20, no, not even, about 15 minutes after we go off the air, the show will be shareable. Well, I shouldn't say that. If you want the YouTube copy of this, because we're live on YouTube now, it won't be until later. But the podcast version of this will be on our YouTube channel, approximately 15-20 minutes after the show ends. So that's kind of the positive about it.
I'd like very much to share the YouTube version, because I think some important conversation has happened, during the breaks. And so please send me a text, Dave, or a messenger, either way, when it's up on YouTube, because then I'll share it live.
Okay. So this is kind of what happens after the show ends. If you guys want to stick around and chat, you're more than welcome. I have to edit the program to send it to our radio stations. A couple of our radio stations. So if you guys want to chat, normally we end up ending the actual YouTube broadcast about 48 minutes after the hour. So at 12:48 Pacific. So by then, what I can do is when I sign off, I will put a link in our group chat that we had on Facebook, because we're all in there, and I can put the link to that here. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
That sounds.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Wonderful. So, no, I'm
going to be going to bed after this, so I'm sure sharing will happen mañana.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're just about to come out of our final commercial break here. We're going to get right into it and move over from there and continue on. So we're about 20 seconds away. All right, I'm going to flip this
So
here.
our vault today.
Thank you to our super chatters tonight. Really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for helping us out here. I'm still weirded out by it, but in a good way. Thank you. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. I appreciate you taking the time to join us on this special edition of Spaced Out Radio. And the reason why it is special, we have a panel discussion going on regarding the situation and the status of MUFON after former executive director Jan Harzan was fired due to being arrested back on July 3rd regarding an incident in trying to lure young children or young women, young ladies, young girls into sexual lewd acts. And it just doesn't even feel good coming off the tongue like that. It really doesn't, because it's an ugly subject that puts another black eye on the field of ufology. And joining us now, journalist Cheryl Costa had to drop out. She was having a little bit of technical issues with her computer, but we thank her for coming on, because she is just a brilliant, brilliant woman when it comes to this subject. Melinda Leslie is here with us. James Clarkson, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, Science Bob McGwier, and UFO historian William Pullin are here as well, discussing this major, major topic. And right before the break, we were getting into a little bit of a heartfelt discussion about whether or not MUFON could survive this. On the interim basis, they have made David McDonald their interim leader in replacing Jan Harzan until they can find a new leader. Now, Twitter, which is always good to dig up information and any type of smut or dirtiness on anybody, brings up the fact, that David is part owner of a company called Flamingo Air out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And so what are they famous for? They are famous for allowing people the opportunity to join the Mile High Club in airplanes. So they fly up to 5,240 feet or 60 feet or whatever it is, and they allow people to do their business in an airplane. So that way they can brag about the Mile High Club. Now, this came out on Twitter. Now, I'm going to say this personally. It doesn't bother me. Everybody's allowed to make a living as long as it's legal, okay, and in this case, consensual. I don't have an issue with it. Other people may. Other people on Twitter are saying, this is what this guy does for a living. How could MUFON have another black eye by putting this guy in charge on the interim? Bob, I know this is something that has riled your beard up. So let's hear from you on this one.
So I shared in our little internal chat group a link to the Vice article that everyone is referring to. Look, people have sex. That's not something I object to. It's a natural function. We're all motivated in some way or another by it. That's not the problem. It's a stupid publicity move for MUFON. It's just dumb. Yeah. And I just don't know how to put it better than that. It's just a dumb move, and it doesn't help at all, especially now. It's just tin-ear, totally blind, wrong-headed move.
Mm-hmm.
Except who could they have gotten as an alternative?
That I don't know.
And of course, my understanding of Dave McDonald, I had a rare opportunity for one day when he came out actually because Jay-Z Knight made a huge donation to MUFON, and Jan, she wanted somebody to come out for a special weekend, and Jan Harzan sent Dave McDonald to Yelm, Washington to be part of her weekend. And of course, he didn't even bother to tell me, the state director. Well, Dave McDonald called me while he was here. He ended up being stranded, and I got to know him really well. Well, I don't know how much of an exaggeration it was, but he told me at the time that when he took over for MUFON, when James Carrion left, the MUFON was very close to bankruptcy at that point. It was that things were that bad. And so I kind of have, and looking at the list of board members, I'm back to my original question. I totally get your comment about optics. It doesn't look good, but I'm not sure they had much of a group to select from.
Which is why I contend the announcement should have been, we have removed Jan Harzan. We are going to enter into careful deliberations about our next moves. You will hear from us once that process is finished.
Yes, that's a much better communication.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely. Bob, I absolutely agree with everything you guys are saying completely. I thought, I understood why they said what they said, but they needed to say a little more, you know. Yeah. And that's one of the things that they absolutely needed to say in there is, you know, we're going to carefully choose and vote, you know, on a new director. I mean, come on. I absolutely agree with everything you guys have said.
Okay, so lewdness aside of Dave McDonald's career choice, I guess we can call it that, career choice. Okay, you know, and I don't mean to laugh about this, but okay, maybe I'll play devil's advocate here for a second. Why make an issue out of it?
Because it's bad optics.
I agree. Yeah, it's optics. You're right. And I don't have a problem that he does that. But how unfortunate that the guy who does that was the person they put in right after a major sexual scandal. I'm like, like Bob, I agree with you there. It was really a tacky choice right now. It's like, and if you're going to do it, why not make a statement about, you know, why the reasons you're choosing him to fill this position? Because if you said enough positive stuff, it would lessen the impact of that. But it is an optics issue, which is exactly the whole nature of what we're talking about here going on with MUFON. They have a huge image problem that
clueless.
They're obviously blind to.
I personally, and I'm going to jump in here and be serious here for a second. I personally don't understand why, if I look at the board of directors, why it wasn't Tom Whitmore. He is a brilliant man. He is retired. He has ran major corporations in the financial sector. He's a sharp wit when it comes to his pen. He talks very professionally. He's somebody who has had to be a strong leader when he was CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, a finance company. It just made sense. And the fact that to be all serious here for a moment, that they chose David McDonald, as you said, and I think you said it brilliantly, Melinda, is the fact that coming out of this scandal to go into this, it just has more egg on their face. Michael W. Hall, I bring you in here, and I apologize. You've been kind of quiet here, but what's your thoughts on this?
Oh, my computer monitor just fell over, so sorry about that. But the real issue is, I think that they've got to. And by the way, Dave, I would totally second that motion for Tom Whitmore. What a great human being, and a researcher and a leader himself. So there are plenty of people out there in the community of MUFON that could be elevated to a position like that have a lot of experience, expertise, and the community likes them as well. I mean, let's talk about why not ask James Clarkson to be on a board to help select the next director, or people like Maureen Morgan, state directors that have really shown through the decades that they know what to do and how to handle people, and how to build an organization. I mean, the idea is that they just need to think outside the box and just go ahead and do it. I think they could reach out to people even outside the community of MUFON as well, to help them with their PR image.
And Michael, you bring up a good point. I mean, there's a couple of names that I saw bandied about on social media today in regards to that. David Marler was one of them. A scientist named Robert McGwier was another one who was bandied about on social media today in regards to that. I don't know if anybody will recognize that name around here.
And you guys, let me chime in for some of the women. What about Kathleen Martin or Jennifer Stein?
Absolutely brilliant choices.
They're very active in MUFON. They're more than capable,
Kathleen Martin's been around forever. She'd be a terrific person.
But as Bob and I were talking the other day, whoever gets that full-time position, number one, has to have the strength of a gorilla to go in there and clean house. But number two, they also have to bring in a right-hand person who is much younger, who can officially, prepare to take over that role, to take MUFON into the next few decades, or couple of decades at least. And there has to be some training. There has to be, a complete overhaul of that. New ideas, new media, new everything has to come out of this. And William, go ahead.
Yeah, it does. But change. You mentioned Mr. Whitmore, highly intelligent, highly qualified, kind gentleman. He's well thought of. That's not change. He's another Caucasian man. There are highly qualified women in the field. That would be change. MUFON's never been headed by a woman. That would be change. I'm sorry, but it is. My demographic. I'm a Caucasian man over 50.
The image and the optics. It's the image and the optics of.
Exactly. Yeah. So people from the outside see another white man at the head of MUFON. That's not a change. That is not a change.
So what?
Yeah, but
despite his qualifications, that it needs to go in another direction. Substantial change needs to happen in the organization from the top to the bottom. Period. But that's uncomfortable for some people, but that's what has to happen.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Okay, what does color or sexual orientation have to do with that? All right, and the reason why I say the reason why I say that is it has to be the right person. I don't care religion, color, sexual orientation, anything. I don't care. It has to be the right person in order to do that. I don't think it has to be a rash judgment. But you're right. I will say this: MUFON needs more people of ethnicity. They need more people of more women involved in higher ranking positions. And then, Melinda and Bob both mentioned some very brilliant women who deserve that opportunity. And they already have, like with Terry Ling or Debbie Ziegelmeyer, they already have very smart women in those positions. Okay. But we need more. We do. But I think that at this point, it has to be the right person. It doesn't matter who, what, when, why. I just would like to see someone, doesn't matter who they are, okay, someone from the outside who has no bones to pick, who has no itches to scratch, who has no loyalty to who is on that board or who's a state director. I think that's the person who has to come in there with a very large shovel and start digging in holes.
Well, Dave, let me throw out one other thing, if I may here. MUFON is an international organization. There are international directors.
Absolutely.
Wow. Let's have a board of some of the international people. Not only would that get into the possibility of other races, for sure, but also an international voice. How come the board doesn't have any of the international directors on it?
Well, I mean, if you take MUFON Canada, MUFON Canada only is set up in Ontario, and I believe in certain sections of Quebec. And they consider MUFON Canada, which is its own country, to be just like Washington State or Indiana or Idaho or California or New York. That's the way MUFON has always treated MUFON Canada. And here you're talking about a country of 38 million people.
Well, I'm just saying it's an international organization. I think the board should reflect that. I really do.
I agree. I think that that is brilliant. I think that is brilliant. Michael, your thoughts?
Well, I would agree there for sure. Obviously, the UFO enigma is a worldwide situation that could be coming to a head immediately and quite soon. So the idea meaning that we need to involve the rest of the world as well. I mean, that's obviously something that should be done and should have been done for quite a while. The whole idea of communication between countries in this enigma is sorely lacking over the decades anyway. So that would be a fantastic step forward for MUFON if they went international and maybe use this opportunity to springboard into a more transparent worldwide organization. That would be a great idea.
I think so. We've got about 4 minutes left here before we got to start wrapping everything up. This show has been just a complete power show of knowledge and understanding here. You mentioned the word transparency earlier, William. And I'm going to I want to get everybody's comments in here before we start to shut down here. But transparency. How important now, when MUFON goes to these emergency board meetings, is it to discuss transparency to help rebuild any credibility they may have left?
Oh, it's vitally important. The lack of transparency is part of the issue while we're here. Now, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We should not be having this broadcast. We should not be having these discussions. These issues should have been addressed prior to this, a long time ago. We shouldn't be here. We should not be here. Transparency can get us past this, total transparency, so the general public can know what's going on, what's precipitating this, are any changes going on, who is involved, names, qualifications, how are the changes being processed, how are they being made, who's making them, who's pushing back against those changes, what changes are being made. Transparency allows everyone to examine what's going on and make their own judgments as to how they can participate, how they can better themselves as a community. And this transparency, by not just MUFON, but everybody in the field, can get the community to a place where we're actually a community. The UFO community is extremely fractured. It's full of cliques. There's MUFON, there's anti-MUFON, there's TTSA, anti-TTSA, nuts and bolts, New Age. It runs the gamut. But a level of transparency put on. I mean, this is the chance for MUFON to lead by example. If they are transparent in their changes, which they need to be made, they can lead by example.
Okay, William.
Everyone knows how it's done.
William, I'm going to cut you off there because we only got a couple minutes. James Clarkson, give me about 45 seconds of your best part about transparency here.
I think that it's an absolute necessity. I also think that once again, we're up against the technology issue. And right now, more and more people and groups are meeting on Zoom and through other electronic media. This could be fully adopted by MUFON at all levels and would be a channel for more transparency and better communication so that there wouldn't be these huge gaps of knowledge. So that would be my constructive suggestion for the future, whatever that turns out to be.
Science Bob.
Oh, I want to totally agree with what he said, because look, I'll just give you an example, and it's personal. I'm running a research group doing a major piece of ionospheric research this coming year, 450 miles away from where most of the students are, because we're going to meet on Zoom. So there'll be an engineer, I'll be the research leader, I will meet with the team 1 day a week on Zoom.
Right.
And it's just, we are in the modern, we can do this now. We don't have to all be together. We can have international directors. We can have a director from every continent using Zoom. It's just time to grow up and come to the 21st century.
Melinda Leslie, 30 seconds.
I agree completely with what was just said by everyone. Thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of this with the rest of you gentlemen, and I've enjoyed the conversation. Can ufology survive this? Will MUFON survive this? Yes. Will ufology survive this? Yes. It's just a lesson for us to learn, and it's probably good that it's coming up now rather than later, and we're learning it, because we can all be stronger from it.
Michael W. Hall, you get the final word for 30 seconds, my friend.
All right. Well, I just wanted to end on a positive note here, if we can, this evening. And I know most all of us have been contacted potentially by mainstream journalists regarding the upcoming potential second shoe drop of maybe a New York Times article coming back out again. I don't know any time in the history of ufology that we have as a group come together more over the idea that disclosure seems to be right around the corner. I think we need to use this momentum that we're all feeling and don't allow us this small thing to get out of control. Just keep going forward.
Michael, I want to say thank you for that. And let's give a quick shout out. Journalist Cheryl Costa for joining us tonight. Ufologist Melinda Leslie, former MUFON State Director in Washington State, James Clarkson, the paranormal lawyer, Michael W. Hall, scientist Bob McGwier, and UFO researcher and historian William Pullin. Thank you so much for joining this special edition of Spaced Out Radio. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody participating in our chat rooms tonight on Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club on our website, and all the snarkers and snarkettes hanging out on Twitter. Sorry I didn't get to your questions. We'll do it all again tomorrow, and I promise you, you will be more involved.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Remember, everybody, the Woo train may have docked for the night, but tomorrow we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, guess what? We got room for them too. Good night. That's a good show, everybody. Good show. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. That's good radio tonight.
Awesome.
Third Phase of Moon, thank you so much for the super chat tonight. I really do appreciate that. And, we, yes, I will have a few minutes here. Message me privately on Twitter or Facebook, and we can exchange phone numbers, Third Phase, and I can give you a call. But yes, I do have a little bit of time to talk little aliens with you guys. I think it's absolutely. I think you guys did amazing.
I've got to ring off. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to say goodnight to everybody.
Oh, James.
Good night, Jim.
James, thank you so much, James.
Thank you.
James Clarkson, everybody. James Clarkson.
Yeah,
Good. That's good radio, James.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was
so
an
much.
honor talking to all of you, and I got a lot out of it. I learned a lot, so it's always valuable.
Oh, yeah, we did too, my friend. Thank you for bringing your knowledge.
Same here.
I really do appreciate that, James.
Anytime. Thank you. Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Say goodbye to Joanne.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good night, Joanne. Good night, Joanne. Good night, Joanne. All right. No, I thank you, gorgeous Teresa, for the super chat. I really appreciate that, guys. I think I know we weren't trying to solve the wherever Forrest Fenn's treasure was hidden, but I can say this, guys. I mean, excuse me. I think we had some very analytic and constructive conversation tonight. I really do.
I just hope MUFON board members will listen.
Fabster, thank you.
Or at least, be willing to listen to the recording.
Oh, yeah. Give me 2 seconds here. At Third Phase.
Good job, Dave.
If we're done, I'm probably going to sign off here now, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good night, Melinda.
Me too.
All right.
Good night, you guys.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you for having me on a part of this. I'm glad I had a tour canceled tonight and I was able to join in.
Yeah, absolutely. Love you guys, and thank you all. And hopefully we don't have to do another show like this, as great as it was. But next time we can choose a better topic.
Yep.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
All right.
Amen.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Good night,
All right.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you again. Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Be safe.
That was a great show. Great show. Hey, Barry S. Nick, thank you. I did get your private message. I really do appreciate that, man. Whoo! Warm. Very, very warm. Very, very. Courtney Nunez, thank you so much for joining our chat room. I really do appreciate that. And Fabster and Teresa, again, thank you for the super chats. Lee A., you are beautiful as well. Thank you so much. You guys are way too generous. Way too generous for me. Or to me, I should say. Thank you so much. I do appreciate the love. I'm glad we did this show. Okay, I will call you. I just got to edit the show. Give me about 20, 30 minutes, and I'll give you a call. Let me see. Did I get that? Hold on. Let me make sure I got it first. Where did you say? Oh, there it is. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Yeah, I did get it, Blake. I will call you in about 20, 30 minutes once I get everything edited. But no, I you know what? I know we talk a lot about the woo, and we talk a lot about everything that's kind of going on here. And look, I love to have fun with these subjects. And like with Corey, who does all of our booking, Corey is just the most amazing dude, man. He really is the most amazing dude, and he works really hard. at bringing us some incredible guests with incredible topics. And tonight we were supposed to have Mike Morin on for Ghosts of the Great White North, but sometimes we have to jump into the fray of what is happening in the real news of this. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I have no connection to MUFON. And like I said, I have a couple board directors that I consider friends. One I consider an absolute mentor in this field, and my heart breaks for him right now. It really does break for him because, I mean, this is him. We don't talk often, but we talk every couple of weeks. And if I have questions that I need to bounce off this person, and it's vice versa. We really try hard to help each other out. So to see this person have to go through this is difficult for me because I know he didn't know anything. I know that. You know, I mean, and the hard part is, how do you, you know, how do you make it better? You know, when somebody like that gets hurt, you know, and feelings, you know, look, you know, as somebody who suffers from anxiety and depression that I'm very open about, you know, feelings hurt. And unfortunately, that's what's happened here. There's a lot of hurt feelings. And, you know, we also have to understand that the rest of the board, they're human too. Okay. They are human. And I agree that I don't think any of them knew anything about this. I don't think they did. And this is just as much of a shock to them as it is to any one of us who is having to deal with this right now. And I feel so bad for a couple people that I know on that board because they don't deserve this. And they're good, hardworking people. They're there for the reasoning of this. And, you know, we may have to do this again over, you know, over whatever happens. I don't want to, but we may have to. And that's honestly just the way it is. That's honestly just the way it is. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like there is no choice, right? And that's just the way it's going to go. And so with that being said, you know, the only thing I ask for in regards to all of this is if you're on social media discussing this, whether you love MUFON or you hate MUFON or, you know, put your personal feelings aside and realize that outside of the group itself, there's innocent people here that have been absolutely destroyed by one person's actions. And we must always remember that because, you know, nobody wants to be painted with the same brush. And that's the only thing that I ask. Be mad at MUFON all you want. I'm pissed off at them. Okay. Not only for this, but it's like, God, again, you know, now we're going through more bullshit again. Yeah. Okay. You can be pissed off at them, but remember, there is a human element to it. And if you were standing on the firing lines right now and you had nothing to do with it, the last thing you would want is to be blamed. Okay. You know, so they need to do some homework. And I told my friend this, that, and I've talked to him about this way before this whole Harzan incident, that they need to do a lot of housekeeping. Okay. And unfortunately, he's just one voice, you know, so, you know, be mad. We all deserve to be mad at this. And, you know, the panel also brought up some good points. There needs to be more women involved. There needs to be more people of color. There needs to be more people of sexual orientation, because when it comes to UFOs, I don't think aliens are wondering, well, you know, that person is black or that person is East Indian or that person is Mexican or Chinese or Vietnamese or whatever it may be. I don't think the aliens are worrying about that. We shouldn't either. And, you know, when it comes to the board, you know, they need to make some right decisions. Otherwise, they may shut it down over this. I don't think they will. I think MUFON will survive, but they need to make some solid decisions over this, and hopefully they can do that. Hopefully they can do that. You know, my personal vote, I'll tell you who my personal vote is to run MUFON, and I think could do the best job, is Bob McGwier. Now, Bob, and I will be public with that. I have no problem being public with that. Okay, granted, his time is very caught up with SkyHub and other things that he is doing. Okay, yes, he's very caught up in that. Okay, but in the end, okay, if you're looking at this and it's a full-time job, and I have no idea why my YouTube keeps acting the way it is, I will try and work on that, and I apologize. But if you look at it, I don't think there is anybody more qualified for that job to clean up and take over MUFON than Science Bob McGwier. Now, I may be biased because I consider him a good friend and mentor. He comes on this show. Okay, we're going to be starting a new feature next month called Science Bob and Friends. Okay, but this is a guy who's been there, done that. He's an outsider. He has business experience. He knows how to clean this up, or not this up, but he knows how to start up businesses. He knows how to run businesses. We don't need the Corey Goods or the David Wilcox or people like that. Okay. You know, and Melinda brought up a good name about Kathleen Martin. That would be a great choice too. Okay. That would be an excellent choice for the board. Does she have the strength, though, to battle a lot of these people who are out there who may be a little bit more egocentric? I don't know. I don't know. Right? I don't know Kathleen that well. Why is my cat meowing? Hold on, let me go check. Hi, please. Here. Go say hi to people. Here's Puss. There's the new kitty. Right there. I know, sweetie. She's going to get fixed tomorrow, so she's a little hungry. So she hasn't eaten since 8:30. So she sometimes tries to come visit. She snuck in. I'll be right back. I know. You want to get out. You want to go to sleep. Poor kitty's going to be all sore in the next few days. So let's see here. What am I doing? No, I haven't done that yet. Yeah, Kitty's got to get going to be getting fixed, so she can't eat right now. The poor little girl's hungry. I don't blame her. I'm kind of hungry too. Can't feed the cat right now, man, because she's going to be having surgery in the morning. vet said, no kitty food. Mm-hmm. Have we saw what? You know, Dave, I think you had almost all my favorite people on. Oh, that's cool, John. Thank you. I tried to get a couple other people to join in. There was just a couple people who just said no, and I'm going to keep their names out of it because it's irrelevant, but they just said, you know what, this one's hit way too close to home, and they didn't feel right about doing it. So, that was, I think we had a very strong panel tonight, and we will definitely be talking more about this. I know this topic will come up on Friday with Tim McMillan, who will be our guest. Tomorrow night, we're going to take a little bit of a break unless there's breaking news on this subject again. But I don't know if there will be. I mean, I didn't want to bring it up on the show, but I mean, I know others, it came up once, but I really feel for Jen Harzan's wife and children and relatives and friends right now. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I really couldn't imagine what they are going through right now. It just, it's horrible. Horrible. Right? So, yeah. Absolutely horrible. Switch sound. Oh, so now it doesn't want me to do this. God damn. Let's try this one. See if that works. Am I the only Canadian in here right now? Really? Am I the only Canadian in here right now? Total silence. Thanks, Eve. I love my Eva. 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 Like the new radio plan. Dead air. I'm not trying to be dead air. I'm trying to edit here. You know, I apologize. Would you like me to talk more? And a baseball cap. Would you like my mask? Is that what you would like, Eva? Is that what you would like? Here we go. There's my new look. How about that? We're always still here, Eva. Good night, fitness girl. All right, enough of that. My glasses are fogging up. All right. All right, there's one done. Rano is a Canuck. April, the frequency girl, is a Canuck. Eva didn't like the mask. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. All right, let's go to Dropbox here. Go there. Upload folder. Okay, there you go. There you go. That's the hair. It's ungelled. It's looking all over the place. There you go. Oh, my beautiful face. You were, Moonstone, you were way too kind. You haven't seen me up close and personal yet. It's hideous. Hideous. Ask Teresa. Ask April. Who else is in here who's met me? I don't know if there's anybody else in here that's actually met me. Oh, excuse me. No, I don't see anybody else in here that's actually met me. So, it's not pretty. It's not pretty whatsoever. Dave, does any behavior Jan exhibited in the past easier to explain if blackmail was at play? John, I don't even want to go down that road because I don't believe there's any blackmail here at all. I'll tell you what concerns me. And we didn't have time. Hi, Lots. How you doing, beautiful? Thank you for coming in. And my beard is looking all right now. I'll tell you what concerns me, okay, is people like this, they either fly really, really under the radar, like, or they have a group, and that group has a core of secrets. And what scares me about this is, what if Jan wasn't alone? What if more people in ufology in that area are involved with some of this? I will not forget Brenton Blake. I am still editing. Once I get this going, then I will have to give them a call. So I am not devastatingly handsome, Moonstone. You are on drugs right now. Get off the drugs. Michel Lacroix. First time listening to the show. Thank you so much for tuning on in, Michel. Merci beaucoup. But the idea behind it is, you know, I hope there aren't more people involved. Okay. And if there are more people involved, I hope that Jan does the right thing. Okay. And gives up those names. Okay. And because those names have to come out if he did not act alone. Okay. We don't know. Here's the other scary part about this. We don't know if this was his first time and doing this. We don't know if this has been going on for years. We don't know how long he's been a pervert like this. You know, and I'll be honest with you. I worked at a radio station in Vancouver, and one of my good friends there who was the crime reporter. And he moved on to television and made a solid career working for the biggest television station in British Columbia. And the next thing you know, he is charged with sodomizing a neighborhood boy, a friend of his son's, for like 4 years. Okay, 4 years. This is a guy who was the crime beat reporter. He dealt with all the scum in the police. Okay, sometimes you just don't know. You really don't know. Right? And let me tell you, I mean, when I was out of radio when he was busted. Okay, but it's still scary that this animal was around. Like, he had met my kids, right? Not often, like only at like the company Christmas get-togethers or what, when they bring the kids in and everybody gets a toy from Santa Claus, that kind of thing. Okay. But he had met my kid. And by the way, 848047 is your verification code. 848047. Sorry, I got caught up in the conversation. So, anyways, long story short, hold on, I got to send a quick email here, Jyoti. All right, sorry. So, I mean, I really hope that, we need to find out more details. How long has this been going on? Is he part of some child porn ring? Is he has he been a pedophile for a while? Has he, was this a one-time thing that he decided to do something extremely stupid? And then, hi, Sue Walker, how are you? Good to see you from Sandia Mountain. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be that we need to find out. And that's what's scary about this. Okay, because if this isn't the first time, how many children are affected by this? How many 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, 17-year-old girls, 18-year-old girls has he or have fallen prey? We don't know. That's what's sickening about this. That's if he's guilty. Let us remember, he is innocent until proven guilty. The court of public opinion has already spoken. We know this. Okay, but the court of law hasn't. And we have to have the strength, as much as it sucks, we have to have the strength to let the law do their work. And we have to have faith in that system, even though we there's a lot of crap going on. Yeah, there's no male pattern baldness here whatsoever. If you take a look here, there's nothing, no male pattern baldness. Anyways, we have to have that strength in order to remember that we have to allow the law to do its part. We have no choice. That's just the way it is. Right? At least that's my opinion, but who am I? Who am I? Thank you, lots. Oh, I know Grandma Rose loves the hair, dude. I know she does. I love me some Grandma Rose. Got a hair somewhere. Like bugging my eyes. All right. All right. That one is done. Just wait for the other one to be done. It should be done here in a few minutes. %50 Canadian. Which part? No urges to play Backstreet Boys. You know, even though you are my fire, my one desire. Good night, Frap Sap. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate that. I sent this, did I not? I swore I did. Pretty sure I sent that. We'll send it again just in case. What the hell? It's not going to hurt. I'm pretty positive I sent it. We'll send it again. There, now it says shared spaced out radio. That one. Now I can do this. Close that window off. I'm not in the mood to sing tonight. Not in the mood to sing. Oh, come on. I don't know why it keeps doing that. I really, really don't get it. Ron, you have no hair. You can't bag on my hair when you don't have hair, man. Science Bob, what are you still doing awake? What are you still doing awake, buddy? And I don't know, Rono. I don't know. Good night, Jenny. Much love, my dear. All right, that is done there. I don't know what to sing. I don't feel like singing tonight. Working on my candidate statement for a board. MSAT. Well, everybody, I got to shut this thing down because apparently I got to call Blake here, and we'll let you know how that goes tomorrow. And I got to get to bed here because I got to be up for work in the morning. Supposed to be my day off tomorrow, but too much happened today at the office that I got to go back, but that's okay. I will be there. I will totally be there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow night we have Brett Farrell on the show. We're talking hypnotherapy, so we're going to totally switch gears and get out of